Darling, it's grand. They just don't understand. Oh, living for you is easy living. It's easy to live when you're in love, and I'm so in love. There's nothing in life. There's nothing in life but you. There's nothing in life but you. There's nothing in life but you. There's nothing in life but you.
Of the previous ABR meeting, which was November 26th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Made by Gary, seconded by Kirk. Any comments? Up to... Okay, go ahead. Just read while I'm talking. Any items up to and including item number 1? Any comments, I should say? Number 2? Number 3? Number 4?
Madam Chair, on item 4, under the motion number 3, it's a very minor change in the second line. The west elevation and, instead of in, and a matching color or material of the existing posts.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah.
Should say the west elevation and a matching color.
And a matching color or material. So it's deleting the at.
At,
At
exactly.
the existing posts. Mm-hmm. Did you get that? for number 3 under the motion.
Matching the color of the existing post. Right?
Let me reread the whole motion, or number 3. Study using metal for it should be for the intermediate posts between the garage doors and windows on the west elevation, and a matching color or material at the existing posts of the garage doors. It's not the west elevation. It's not also the west elevation. It's the north elevation, on the north elevation, rather than a plaster finish. There were 2 different elevations, 2 different locations.
Did you get that, Kathy? All right, anything else on item 4? Item 5. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 1 abstention by Chris. Motion carries. Consent calendar for Monday, December 3rd. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Kirk, seconded by Stephanie.
Thank you. For consent last week, December 3rd, we had item A, 301 West Cabrillo Boulevard, final approval as submitted. Item B, 300 West Alomar Avenue, Oak Park, project design approval and final approval with conditions. Item C, 505 Wentworth Avenue, project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item D, 322 West Mission Street, postponed 1 week at the applicant's request. Item E, 131 Anacapa Street, the review after final was approved with a condition. Consent last week was reviewed by Paul Zink and Chris Gilliland.
Thanks, Tony. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstains? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, minutes for the consent calendar for December 10th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Motion made by Kirk, seconded by Chris.
Consent calendar today, we had item A, 824 Reddick Street, was continued 1 week. Item B, 528 Anacapa Street, got a final approval as submitted. Item C, 322 West Mission Street, got final approval as submitted. Item D, 2038 Modoc Road, continued 1 week. Consent today was reviewed by Paul Zink and Chris Gilliland.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Abstentions? Motion carries. No abstentions. I don't have to abstain. I had a project on that. Do I have to abstain? Item 1. For that item. I'll abstain for that item. Announcements?
Madam Chair, I have to leave early today from the meeting, which I noticed you guys, everyone about last week. I have I said I have this thing on.
It's a battery problem.
Okay. I have to leave early to attend the Montecito BAR meeting.
No.
I can be here until 4
You
o'clock.
can't go. Okay. Any other announcements? Tony, any announcements?
Paul Zink expects to come around 4 o'clock or after. He's at the M-Bar also, but
Okay.
his item was earlier, so he thinks he can join us later.
Okay. Anything else?
Madam Chair, I have an announcement. This is the ABR's last meeting for 2010. And on behalf of staff, we'd like to thank the chair, Ms. Sherry, for serving so many years on ABR, as well as Chris, who's now going to hopefully be around some more, because we don't have a recruitment for a landscape architect. The landscape architect that filed did not attend his interview. So I'm going to ask you to stay around for a while. I think the deal was you had to find a replacement before you could leave.
No pressure. There you go.
So we'll be speaking to you about that arrangement.
We'll be speaking about that.
But
Yeah,
thank you on
thank you.
your behalf, and I think we've got some cupcakes in your honor. Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Any more announcements? Okay, subcommittee reports. And we're on to item number 1 on the regular agenda, which is 1130 North Milpas Street. Okay, we saw this project way back in May 29th. And our comments were, how do you think you want to do this, Steve? Do you want to run through them one by one, or do you want to, do you have
Flip through the sheets and talk about them
item by item? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Okay,
as we go through the sheets. I'll just
okay.
point it out.
Okay, your name for the record.
Steve Carter with Design Arc Architects.
They're on. Oh, that one's not on yet.
Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting.
Okay, so we have.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
like to make a couple
Yeah, go ahead.
of comments first? So this project went to the Planning Commission back in November 1st, not too long ago, received approval for the modifications that were requested, a conditional use permit, initiation of general plan amendment, map amendment, and the vacation of the Luena Drive, and that also went to City Council on 2 occasions, end of November, beginning of December, so they received approval to vacate Luena Drive. So they've received all their land use approvals. So now they're back to ABR for project design approval and final, ultimately.
Thank you.
We also went to HLC for historic structures report, and they had a couple comments
Okay.
that they wanted us to look at here. Okay. Cover sheet you guys have seen before. Just a couple minor changes to statistics and sheet list. We added, this is a new sheet, topo map. Planning staff wanted that added. A1 site plan is pretty much how you saw it last time. We have one of the comments you had, your number 8, I believe. We added permeable paving here at the crosswalk and at the shuttle pickup to match the permeable paving we have in our plaza. Floor plan and sections remain pretty much the same as when you previously saw them. Elevations are, again, as you saw them previously. You had a comment regarding the option to eliminate this chimney front. We kept that on as we showed that to you last time. And HLC, one of their members, HLC, one of the members asked that we study eliminating the stone we have under the windows, and we did look at options that I can show you, but we would prefer to keep that as we had presented to you last time.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. City TV informed me that the audio in this room is not working. They're recording it okay and it's broadcasting okay on TV, but the audience in this room is not able to hear the speakers.
We never have been able to hear the speakers in this room.
So,
What else is new?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
anybody can't hear in the audience, can you just come to the front row? You can also come around the table and look if you want. You can stand behind Steve, and yeah, we never have had real microphones in this room that broadcast. It's always been a problem, right? Or an issue.
3.2, no changes on that sheet from what you saw before. This is a new sheet that you didn't see last time. This was, you asked for additional study dealing with the cul-de-sac that we added at the end of Luena Drive. And as far as plan goes, this is the same as we had on our previous drawings. We did a quick rendering just to show you what that looks like. There's 2 sections here. And then this is the existing wall that is back here, the existing Reading gate that we will be matching. We will have our gate we have across here will match the David Shelton design gates that we have on these areas. So I'll get into questions if you have anything specific on that. We can address that for you, but that is a new sheet. And then we put have some details, mostly lighting. We have sconce lighting, building lighting. These lights are underneath the eaves. The one at the bottom is on our beams underneath the roof overhangs. We have bollards that we're using in the upper part of the walkway. These bollards are going on concrete stands. These are in front of the cars. One of the members on this board was concerned of somebody hitting their gas pedal instead of their brake pedal. So in front of each of the cars, we have a concrete bollard with a light on top of it. It's our parking lot lights. These are our overhead pedestrian lights. And then we have miscellaneous sections, which are reflecting what we've done in our wall sections before. This is a gutter at the end of the rake. We have our finish materials. We can hit that now, I guess. So we are looking at a metal standing seam roof, and this will be painted. If we can get your approval as an alternate, we'd like to have an alternate of real copper if the Bull's able to fund that at the time. These are our glulam beam. We have this color. These are 5 1/4 by 10 1/2, 1 1/8 plywood on top, which will all be this stain color. And this is the plaster color we have on our building. This is the slump block we have on the north wall behind the building. Metal windows, any of our metal beams, trusses, all be a black color. Sandstone, which we're using on our retaining walls. This is the color of our permeable paving. And then we have a dark gray concrete for our window sills, and at the ticket sales we have a concrete sill on that. That's that color. The other details we would like at the entrance off of Milpas, we're looking at stone boulders with chain cap rail, and that's to when there is a show going on and we have crosswalk guards, we'll remove the chain and then people can use the ramp going at the end of our plaza out to Milpas. And when it's not being used, there'll be a chain guard put up to keep people from using that area as a crosswalk and or thinking it's a driveway. But it is a ramp down to Milpas instead of the curb that's currently there. That occurs right here.
so that there's a nice transition.
Okay.
While you're on that sheet, Steve, do you want to point out the softened edge of the hardscape line between the begonia garden and the plaza area?
That area we looked at, I do have studies on. We would prefer not to change this line in that, we're mirroring these 3 trees and this and 3 trees here. So we do have this lines up with our building, so we'd like to keep that as a straight line there if the board approves. And this shows a little better on the landscape plan. We did extend this down so it overlaps our stone wall at the condensers. There was a comment that they want landscape wanted landscape in front of that stone wall. So we can look at that a little bit closer on the landscape plan, but those were the 2 items. And then these are new sheets, irrigation details. And the landscape plan, I think it's pretty much as you saw it last time. Again, this is that line that we'd like to keep mirroring both sides, keeping maximum width across there. And then we've moved this line. It was here. We've moved it down a little bit so we can have a landscape area in front of that wall.
You're talking about that little piece right there?
This piece, this area here.
But there's no plants in there.
There's no plants in there.
But it's DG. Is that DG?
It is DG, yeah. And I think that is, we have civil drawings that you didn't see last time. So we have planting details. Civil drawing, we've gone through planning staff width, so that's that detail. And then there's wall sections through our retaining walls at the cul-de-sac. And last sheet is by our arborist tree protection.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Do we have any public comment on this project? Because I don't have any speaker slips. No. Okay, questions from the board? Stephanie?
I do have questions. Thank you, Steve. I have a little question about the permeable paving. You said it came up at one of our ABR meetings previously. I kind of don't remember that, so try to refresh my memory on why it was asked for, and is it because of the permeability and trying to get more permeable paving, or just a continuity of materials?
It's trying to get water pushed back into the ground at those locations. So it is a requirement of planning staff and our calculations that we've done.
Do you have concerns about big trucks ruining that permeable paving?
At the crosswalk and potentially.
Yeah.
We'll have to look at it closely. It doesn't need to be permeable at the crosswalk.
That's really the only place I was concerned with, the driveway where all the big heavy trucks and buses
No.
cross.
Yeah, we'll probably end up having concrete under it at that section.
Okay.
So at that point, it's just for material only.
Right, okay. The underside of the eaves, how is that treated? It was just plywood?
It'll be, yes, it'll be plywood that's stained, and all the joints there won't be
Is
any
there
joints.
Texture, or is it just the,
We will try to get a good texture and a good finish on that one.
okay.
Yes. That's what was done up at the Macaw Plaza, same detailing.
Okay. You said that one of these light fixtures is on the underside of an eave?
That would be this one.
Can you
And
show me how that looks on that?
it fits back in this corner here.
And shine straight down?
It'll shine at a slight angle back
Okay.
in.
And the color of the roof, on your board, with the other colors that you've shown, it kind of is a little clashy to me, and I don't know, maybe it's a little greenish hue to it. That's
I'm not sure
Is
if
that a
that's
question?
picking up.
that I think. Well, maybe not. I'll save it for comments then.
Okay. Any more questions?
No.
Kurt?
Thank you. Just wondering about, I guess we can get out of scale, but just wondering about the size of that gutter, detail.
It's probably 12 inches.
12 inches. And height on the fascia board, what is that?
This is, again, probably, 12 inches. So this is 10 and a half here, plus inch and an eighth, just for scale.
Okay. And then I was going to say on this detail, the concrete swale, which obviously because of the height of the building in relation to the bank, that relationship to the street, that would be something that would be hard to see, if even possible to see from the public view. But there's a retaining wall that comes forward of the building for that little entry courtyard, I think. And then
Let's
I'm
look at the
just wondering
site plan.
about how well that's hidden.
So it'll be running, here probably to this point,
Okay. So
and
that's,
then we'll pick it up at the end of that, and then we have landscaping all this area in here.
okay.
So I think it'll be pretty well concealed from the street.
All right. And then
Plus, the height of this is, this wall's, say, 5 feet, so we're another 3 feet up to here, so probably we're in the 8-foot range
Yeah.
as far as height goes there.
Okay. And then my last question is, I noticed on the existing stone walls, which are at the street, right?
Yeah, this is the existing one that extends down to here.
Okay.
And we're taking that apart and rebuilding it there.
Okay. And that's got a an ashlar pattern on it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Whereas the rest of the stonework, at least
All
from
the bowl is boulder stone.
Boulder Stone. So
Everywhere.
I'm just wondering if maybe just for this building, that maybe this pattern should be picked up. It's just a question. Have you thought about that?
Well, on this, we've used boulder stone on this piece too.
Okay.
So it is, a question of how do you can see it here, and then we go boulder stone here, and then boulder stone, and then boulder stone the rest of the way up into the main project of the bowl.
Yeah, it's a question of where you make that change.
Right.
It's not a dry stack, though, correct?
No.
It's just a running bond pattern.
Correct.
And that's the only difference.
That's correct.
Yeah, right. I got that.
They're still big pieces. They're not small.
No, those are, these joints are 13 inches high, so.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
All
Okay.
right, thanks. Gary?
Couple questions. Do you have a lighting plan right now?
We have, it's shown on the site plan. We've been working on a more extensive one in construction, towards construction drawings, but
Okay, and is that finish on the trellis, is that a gloss finish? The black?
the black is on the beams on the building, and
And is it a gloss
Yeah, it'll
finish,
be a-
was my question.
yes,
I mean,
a
that looks like-
semi-gloss finish is what it'll be.
Okay. And the parking lot light, is this where you have it indicated?
Yeah, it'll be along the south property line then.
Is the parking lot lamp that you chose, is that match the existing ones that are out there, or
No.
are there none out there now?
There are light fixtures out there now, but they'll be taken down, so it'll be all one type of light fixture.
And-
And these are a Vega light, and it has real good cutoff
And-
features, is why we chose it.
And the light fixtures that are on the rest of the complex, are they? Do you have bollards that are similar to this?
Yes, we've used this bollard in
That-
number 6 before. That's used extensively throughout the site.
Good. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Most all of these fixtures have been used on the upper part of the site.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris, question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions. We may have covered this before, but the pavers, are they tumbled or are they smooth edge?
They will be smooth edge.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then the only other question I had was regarding these trees along the southern property boundary. They were once called out as, I believe, king palms. Did we ever resolve that?
Yeah. We talked to the fire department, and they pretty much want us to use that or not.
They say palms
Yeah,
or
palms.
bust.
No.
Okay. That's all I have. Questions?
Thanks, Chris. I had just one question about the comment that HLC made about the stone underneath the windows. And it may be a question for staff. It was a courtesy review or a required review because of the existing building adjacent was historic structure, so it was a required review for this new building to be reviewed by HLC?
The stone walls are historic, potentially historic, so they, applicant prepared a historic structures report. So when they reviewed their historic structures report, they also looked at the project and had that comment on
So
the project.
how
So it's-
are we supposed to be enforcing that comment?
You don't need to, it's just a comment that they made that you can just think about. It's not a requirement. Okay. Also, can I just make another comment? We handed you the Planning Commission resolution.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there are some items, D 1 through 6, that are under design review, and other than 5, which relates to HLC, all the others are under your purview, and I think
Yeah,
the applicant can address all those. We've gone over them with them.
I'll just read these really briefly to you guys. It's tree protection plan, which they have, screened backflow device, which I'm sure you have taken care of, yes?
Yes.
Location of dry utilities shall be placed on private property in this.
Yes, we're not proposing any new cabinets,
Okay.
utility cabinets.
Trash enclosure provision adequate for recycling.
That's on our county portion back here.
Okay, way back there.
Way back, we have walls, trees around it, and
And then the sandstone wall construction drawing, which we saw. Those were
Right.
them. That was it. Okay, comments from the board. Chris?
I guess I think everything looks great. You guys, I like the steps you've taken. You've softened up certain areas that we asked of. I guess my only slight disappointment is in those palm trees. It seems like set within this whole oak woodland thing is this line of palms that doesn't make a whole lot of sense aesthetically, but the fire department gets the last word, so it is what it is. Beyond that, I think everything looks like it's in order.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
New or differing comments, Gary?
I appreciate, first off, we had some severe changes on this, and I do appreciate the changes that you made. I would like to say that as far as the stone goes, I actually love the detail. I looked at your detail. You have the stone that goes below grade. You chop the footing out a little bit to make that stone beneath the window so it appears that it's actually the footing. And I like the detail, and I like the stone that's there. So my opinion is that we should leave the stone under the windows and not remove it. I think it ties it in without mimicking the existing wall. So I think it's good to keep that. I would prefer, I'm sure you would as well, the copper roof. I think that would look a little bit more authentic. I think it would age well. I think that would be exciting to have that if you do have that. The gloss finish that's proposed on here, I think it's too harsh, and I think it should be toned down to either a matte finish or something that's closer to the natural finishes that you have. And I think that the sharpness of that, even the semi-gloss on that black might be a bit too much. Then the across the roadway, when we're talking about I actually like the difference that denotes that that's a crossing way with the pavers. The only thing that I would recommend is that you make some severe documentation that anything that crosses a road where trucks are traffic rated, and that it's done in a traffic rated way. And we here at the city have had the same problems with our crosswalks. You know, we did all these brickwork and everything, and that ended up not being traffic rated brick. And that would have, so we've got a project that looks ugly, and they want to pave it over, and it boils down to the specifications of that job and not the way it was. So clearly mark the specifications on that. But the rest of it, I'm excited that the project's moving forward.
Thanks, Gary. Kirk?
I don't have any different comments, really. I'd much prefer the copper roof, and also agree with Gary's comments about the finish on the metal. I'd like to see it matte finish.
Thanks. Stephanie?
May I see your color board?
Yes.
Yeah, to me, this color of this roof just, here's a little greenish intent to me that really bothers me. And if I obviously much prefer the copper roof, as I'm sure everyone else would too. If there was any way to give it a patina, like a natural copper roof, if they do go with a paint, rather than a...
Yeah, we have used that at the site, and in reality out there, it's real tough to tell the difference between that and the copper. They go down to about the same color.
Okay.
So.
All right. I don't have anything new or differing to add.
Okay.
So, this project's looking for project design approval. Does anybody else feel the same?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Any comments?
I think we could add comment that the board would much prefer to see a copper roof if the budget allows, and of course the copper fascias and gutters to go along with it, and also that we'd like to see a matte finish or a eggshell or something less, a non-gloss finish on the metal doors and windows and exposed members.
All right. Thanks, Kirk. Second for the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Stephanie. Under discussion, anything?
Findings.
What?
Findings, right?
Oh, and the findings we're going to make, can you make the findings from Planning Commission, which I went over, one by one? Oh,
Yes.
the findings those are just comments. Where are the findings? Do we have to make findings? Do we have to make findings?
No, you did that.
We did that already. Done. Okay. Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Oh,
Should that return to full
was the
board or
seconder?
consent for a final?
Stephanie?
Full board, yes.
Return to full board.
Return to full board for final.
Indefinite continuous, or do you want to come back in 2 weeks?
We can't. He can't come back 2 weeks
You can.
because that's
There's
Christmas.
no 2 weeks. Yeah.
There you go.
Christmas Eve, you're going to be back, right, Steve?
There you go.
We'll be here too. All right. Item number 2. We're right on time at 418 North Salsa. This is a final review. Exterior alterations for the existing Quonset hut, consisting of new translucent front facade with new windows and doors, 2 new windows on the side, and a parking canopy at the rear. Telegraph Brewing Company. Okay, your name for the record.
I'm Dan Johnston, and with Architecture JA.
I'm Brian Thompson with Telegraph Brewing.
All right. This was for, oh, there we go. The minutes for the last meeting. Oh, thanks. Do you want to go through these one by one?
Sure.
All right. Number one. Do you want me to?
Well, I've
tell
got
you
them
what
written down as well. We can talk about the rear canopy. Probably that's the simplest thing to get to first. There were some pictures that the board wanted, and I do have those. So there's 2 photos that show it. And this, again, is an existing canopy that's been there for who knows how long. And it's delineated on the plans, and I've also got drawings showing how it's structured on the plans as well.
What number was that?
You know, I didn't have them numbered.
Here, let me go down the list.
Okay.
Number 1, provide a layout of framing of the front walls separate from the glazing for visibility of the structural grid and materials. We were concerned about the visibility of that grid.
Right.
So you have a detail of that now, right?
Mm-hmm. Here it is, front facade framing, and what it is, it's got 2 horizontal girts that are part of the structure existing, and then vertical girts are placed according to openings in the walls. And so since we have the 3 vertical strip windows, we've got the ridge vent in each bay that's in the center of the bay in each case. I just mirrored the double vertical structural elements on both sides, where they obviously run into the existing roll-up door on the one side.
And you have a detail for that?
I've got a detail of how
How it's connected to the facade, to the material that you have been proposing? Where's that detail? I think that's what we were concerned about, right?
It's really a simple detail. You've got this is the vertical detail, and so you've got your horizontal girts and you've got your vertical steel members, and there's a clip that attaches to each horizontal, and it goes in between the 2 panels that come together, which have a batten that goes on the outside that secures them in place.
What is that batten?
Oh, it's the same polycarbonate material.
Oh.
All right. Number 2 was study incorporating in-ground planting, verify feasibility with city staff.
I talked to the city, Public Works, about it. They really didn't care a whole lot about what went into the ground. They don't know at this point when they might upgrade the street. But we did add some landscaping. See it back there. Might be this. Yeah. Basically, let's look at the rendered facade again for a moment. And the last time we presented the project, we had the potted plants and these kind of vertical contemporary pots. And it was suggested that we get something in the ground because it was a little more permanent. We might have a nicer look and soften the facade, the flatness of it, and so on. And so we did. There's not a whole lot of area where we've got ground space to use in front of the building. We've got a door, we've got a door, we've got a door. This corner of the building, it just doesn't make sense to do something right at one side. So what I did was I took a strip in front of the, there's a big metal post that's a bumper guard in front of the building, and so I took a strip in that area where we could put things in the ground. So what we have now is we've got 7 pots. We've got some plants in the ground that are not going to be climbing plants. They're going to be shrubs that grow.
And you have that on a landscape plan? The species and the number and the size?
Here we got, yeah, there's a species. I don't have a size.
You see that, Chris? Yeah. All right.
And then, but what we felt in terms of this, avoiding the flatness of the facade, the material really doesn't lend itself to a lot of offsets and so on. It's a very kind of continuous sheathing type material. And so we've got the cantilever canopy at the entry. And we've done that. We've been able to put the supports for that in between the joints where the panels come together, and it's supported on the frame behind the facade. We've got the plants in the ground, and we've got the plants in the pots. And I think really the beauty of this material is, its cleanness and its translucency and so on. And so we feel that we've got enough going on this facade that it's not going to be at all disturbing, because it's not broken up more than it is. It's right now it's got one big canvas awning over a front door, and other than that it's completely flat. So it's a dramatic improvement over what's there.
And then you have detailed drawings of that awning.
Here it is. It's kind of an axonometric view. It cantilevers both in and into the interior and the exterior.
I think we saw that last time. We were looking for.
You did see that.
We were looking for construction details of the awning.
Well, I've added those onto the sheet. So we've got, this is a section through the wall, and it calls out the members, how it's supported. And then this is a plan view, basically a horizontal section.
Okay.
So what it has a flat plate bracket that bolts on to the vertical steel. And then on the outside it's got a aluminum sheet that's either bolted or welded onto the bracket, and on the inside it's going to have a painted wooden platform, and then there's downlights recessed into it, or not recessed, they're recessed from the bottom, but they're exposed at the top because it's not an enclosed element.
Okay. Photographs you were showing us of the as-built. Now, you said that the canopy was existing and it had been there for a long period of time, but we wrote as-built. Is that because it doesn't have a permit?
Mm-hmm.
Never had a permit. So show those again.
Here are the drawings of it, and the pictures are here. It's basically what everyone thinks is it's just sort of a gas station pump island canopy.
And you're not proposing any changes to that. You're proposing it to have this exactly the way it is, right?
The only change we're proposing is it currently has an end wall, just a plywood end wall on it, and we're going to remove that because it interferes with our parking layout, but we don't need it for any purpose.
Cut sheets for all exterior lighting.
And I've got cut sheets for interior as well because of the translucency of the facade. We've got these are the lights we're going to use on the back of the building, which will be light up the parking area. There'll be two of them on the back of the building. And these are the lights that'll be in the canopy at the door, the front entry canopy, the recessed lights. And then these lights, we've got two options for our interior downlights. That are there's going to be four of them in the front space, and so they'll illuminate, give general illumination to the whole space, and then just by reflectancy and so on, illuminate the facade. And so it'll either be this one or this one. They haven't been selected yet. And then we've got this light, which is a downlight for. Got a lighting plan. If you want to look at it, there's some downlights in a sort of a softened area at the back part of the front room.
They're back farther.
They're further away from the front wall, yeah.
That's all right, well, information about the lifespan of the facade material.
Well, I sent an email to the manufacturer, and he replied with this, which basically talks all about how modern polycarbonate is designed specifically for longer lifespans. There is another report he sent, which is longer than the 125 days, but it's still only like 500 days. But he mentions in the body of this that the products are designed for longevity.
When plastics were first introduced, they developed a very poor reputation due to yellowing, becoming brittle, and damage due to hail impact. Through chemical engineering and new production techniques, UV stabilizers and co-extruded protective layers are readily available that significantly increase the service life of plastics. Our products carry a 10-year warranty against yellowing and hail damage. Europe has been using these materials much longer than the U.S. We see 15 and 20-year lifespans for the plastics, including polycarbonate used in Europe. We use the same co-extrusion process to integrate the UV protection. There's no delaminating possible, etc. There's just a couple more sentences. Anybody want to see that? Proposed colors and provide colors in the same color hue, all cool or all warm, or a color with more Santa Barbara interest. I'd loved that comment. It wasn't my comment. I was making fun of it from the very beginning.
We scoured the city
and
and got all this Santa Barbara interest colors involved. What we've done is we've basically changed our color for the facade, which was what they called a gray, but it was a very blue gray before. And that was sort of the cool color that fought with the warm colors. And so they've got this bronze, which is probably actually going to look better than the blue-gray. And so then we've got, this is the existing color of the building. And this is going to be the color proposed for the windows. This is the front door, and then this is all the trim that you saw in the rendering.
All right. Is that it for your presentation? Do you want to add anything else?
I've got cut sheets on the windows, if you wanted those.
Yeah. Do you have a drawing on in your package for the window trim and how the window trim is incorporated into the windows? These are Integrity. They're Marvin and.
Yeah.
Does it say that here?
Metal.
No, they're fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
Where it is.
It's this window trim.
Right. Let's get this in. So it shows the window sitting in the opening, and then it's got a brick mold. It's like a replacement window where it just slides in from the outside, and the brick mold is attached to the window, and it sits up against a bed of steel, and then it attaches on the inside to the framing, and then the polycarbonate material, anywhere you have an opening or an edge, there's a flashing that is designed to work with it.
Where's that flashing detail? I'm curious about that. Do you have one? You know, how big is it? What's it made of?
It's on this drawing, I think, but it's too small to see probably. Yeah, it's very small. It's like a J metal that wraps around the edge.
This is the outside.
No, that's
correct?
the inside. That's
Oh,
inside.
so the trim is small. That's the trim.
That's actually the window. And then the flashing for the polycarbonate is,
Well, this is the brick mold piece, right?
yeah.
Okay, and that's the flashing. So is this the head detail?
That's
That
jam.
says it's jammed.
Head
Oh,
jam.
yeah, this is the vertical, this is the horizontal, this is the vertical section, so there's the sill and the head.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, it's just, sorry. So the material of that piece, it's got to be metal, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's metal. It's metal.
Painted metal.
I think it's painted. I shouldn't answer that. It could be an anodized aluminum or something.
Is that it? Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, questions. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. The planter that you've called out in front, how deep is that? About 12, 14 inches, something like that?
The one in the ground?
Yeah.
It's about 12 inches.
About 12, okay. And then are you running irrigation to that, or is this all hand water with the pots and the planter?
It'd like to be hand watered.
We're hoping to be as drought tolerant as possible.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Nope.
Gary?
Just one question, the size and material for the metal, either the studs or what's that? Sorry, Mr. TV.
That on the next page? Yeah, I was wondering on AR10, what are the sizes of these studs? Just two questions.
Well, the horizontal girts are 6 inches deep, and they're a 2.5 inch, I think, deep member. The vertical ones would be, a structural metal stud, and so they'd be 3.5 or so.
By 1.5 inches?
Yeah.
And are these lighter lines, is that representing the polycarbonate?
Yeah, the panel widths.
Okay, so this one span, there's no members for I don't know, it looks like 6 to 8 feet.
Right. I think it's about 6 feet.
Okay, those are my questions.
Okay, thanks. Kirk?
Thank you. So on this same topic, I was imagining that wherever you had a header, you'd have a slightly larger member, but that's not true. Not true with that large door opening. Did you have a larger member up there?
Well, the building, the facade isn't supporting the roof. And so the facade is only supporting itself. We haven't been able to do any destructive investigations of the facade, and it's covered up from both sides right now.
Okay.
So we don't know what's up there, but it's possible it could be a deeper member.
Okay, and then I'm just again trying to understand the details. So it looks like this is the polycarbonate material, right, with the lines in it?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other material over that? What is that?
That's the face of the batten. So the
oh, okay.
The polycarbonate material has these little tabs.
Right, okay. I understand.
Slides
Yeah.
over.
All right, that makes sense. And then I mentioned here
Maybe in the front of the camera.
on the cap flashing, what kind of dimensions there?
That's a 3-inch dimension.
3 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the detail of the flashing that comes from the supplier of the polycarbonate. It's sort of a cap detail for the material itself.
All right. I think that's it. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thanks.
One last one. At the ground, how does it attach at the ground? Or does it hover, or what does it do?
It's like stucco or something. It just it stops short of the ground.
Okay. There must be a metal piece there as well.
Yeah.
But we don't have that detail yet.
No.
Okay. Thanks.
Stephanie? Questions?
Yeah, Yes, could you please show me the color board and the color board and the color rendering, please? That's all. Was there any intention or reason or desire to have the windows the same height as the door? Because they're kind of shown as the same height in this, but not in your actual construction drawings. I guess that
They're
is
not the
shown
same.
here. That is a little lower, isn't it?
The I think the mullion is the same height as the door head.
Okay, but what about the top, the header of the window? Meaning
Oh,
going
this
out
door?
Yes, yes.
You know, I hadn't aligned it with that door. No. It could be.
What color is the awning? Is this black? This black
Yeah,
color?
it's like the door.
And then this rendering doesn't show the stucco that you have on each side. Is that your intention, or is it going to be stucco over here? Like,
Sorry, Stephanie.
That's just
or
incorrect.
not?
It that is something
it
that's
shows here
yeah.
stucco.
We've anticipated it would be stucco, and we've anticipated that trying to work the polycarbonate into the smaller spaces and detail it there would be tedious to do. And so we're anticipating it's going to be stucco.
Okay.
Is this? Do you have that on your construction drawing?
They
'Cause-
do. It's on page AR10.
So you have stucco sides. It's not the poly. Does everybody understand that?
I thought, yeah.
I didn't either. Any more questions, Stephanie?
Well, I guess I kind of dig the dark color in which you had done that on the windows too, but they may not come in that color. So yeah, I'm really glad that you guys were able to find that little sliver of planting in the front, and
We're still in questions.
yeah, okay. Can we go right into comments?
No, because I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Your waterproofing of that awning detail and how that, because that's a continuous member that goes inside and outside. Do you have a little detail?
It's not continuous. The
Oh, they're
supports are
separate
continuous,
pieces-
but they're separate
pieces. Okay.
horizontal pieces.
And when you remove that end wall of that as-built structure in the back, you're going to be exposing a bunch of shelves that has a lot of stuff on them.
That's all going to be removed. That's the current tenant.
That's all going to be removed.
No, absolutely.
That's just carpet from Andros.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, comment, Stephanie, go.
I really appreciate the additional planting at the front of the building, and I think it's going to be a vast improvement. And I'm comfortable with the 10-year warranty of the material of the polycarbonate material. Still not convinced on the colors, but I'm more comfortable with the warmer hues that you have selected. That's it. That's it for comments.
Kirk.
Thank you. Thanks for the additional information you provided. I like the new color choices. I still, I have I have some reservations about the project, just because I feel like there's a little bit more clarity required in the detailing. Just for example, the question about flashing, the lack of dimensions on the details. And so the next time we see it, I'd like to make sure that the details are fully dimensioned.
We're going for final, too.
You're looking for final?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. And so then I'll just say that there's some details lacking, like we don't have a weave screed detail. Was represented that you're not sure what the flashing material is. I'm also against the fiberglass windows for a commercial project. I think metal windows are completely in order. And those are my comments.
Thanks, Kirk. Gary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm going to tag along on what he said about the details. In addition, the details of how it's trimmed out at the eaves or at the roof line. I appreciate the drawing that you gave us with what is existing there, and this is what I was concerned with all along, that we didn't have enough information, and now is the first time that we have this information. And I believe that what is proposed and what is existing is not going to play off well as far as the structure goes. This is a translucent item. When it's lit down behind, you're going to see all of that structure. And the structure that is there is not what I would call a handsome structure. Now, sure, it would be good enough to put up a facade that you don't see through, but we're looking at this, and we're looking at it as here's the structure, the bones of the project. And the bones of the project are really haphazardly put together. We have a 8-foot section where there's nothing in between it. We have tight sections where studs are close together. We have tiny studs at 1.5 inches, and we have no beams. We have no headers. We have hardly any beams at the top. We have an I-beam that's on the end. So what we're proposing, that we're going to go look at this, here's our front of our building, it's all clear, and what we have behind it, especially once you take all the screws off and the stucco, what we have behind it is junk. So, and that's, this is my opinion on this, but I don't think that this structure that's proposed is something that I want to see behind there. I think it needs to be a little bit more methodically thought out. I think that there needs to be headers on it. I think that there needs to have a format, a layout of where these studs are going, and dimensionally they should look the same. And for me, it's not there. It's nowhere near ready for final, especially with the product that you proposed. And let me speak a little bit about the product. I spent some time and I went through it and looked at it, and it degrades at about 5% per year. If this has a 10-year lifespan, I don't think, if I purchased it and my property in 10 years all of a sudden looked yellow on the outside of it, I would be a bit perturbed. So I don't know if this product is really what has the longevity of many other projects that we require. A 10-year lifespan for the front of a facade is not a long time. So I hear the rest of the board members is okay with that, but I would think that they should reconsider. I do think it's interesting. I do think that it's cool, but I'm a little bit concerned about its longevity.
Thanks, Gary. Chris?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think Gary brings up some good points, and I'm going to stick mainly to the landscape, but I think in terms of looking at AR10, which shows that exposed framing, I think by taking off the lighter lines that show the polycarbonate and really doing, going further with the study to see exactly what that grid will look like behind there, and then taking time to introduce new members if need be to balance out certain areas so it looks congruent all the way across. I think, it warrants further study, as Gary was saying. There are areas where we have members really close together and areas where, it just seems open and off a little bit. So I think further study on that could help. As far as the landscape goes, the 12-inch planter in front of the Building is very small. I think you're going to need at least 18 inches there in order to do much good. And the plant that you've chosen, the Okuba japonica, is sort of more of a shade plant, and it's going to get toasted there pretty quickly. So I would encourage you to choose another plant, something upright. I don't want to, kangaroo paw or something like that, but something other than the Okuba that's going to die within a few weeks, because you're going to get a lot of reflective sun off of that facade as well. And not to mention you're surrounded by asphalt, so you're going to be absorbing a lot of heat in that area. Something that really loves the heat would be a good choice for that zone. And also, when you come back, to include the size, 1 gallon, 5 gallon, 15 gallon plant, and the quantity. And you said hand water for irrigation. I think that's okay for something like this. The only other thing I noticed was the pots that you've called out may be just the right size for somebody to come and steal. So you might consider a larger, heavier pot that's not so easily moved or stolen. That's all.
Thanks, Chris. All right. I'm going to say that I don't have such a problem with the framing not being regular, if that's sufficient. I mean, framing is what it is. I think that it doesn't necessarily, for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be uniform if that's not required. So I'm seeing it would still look okay, in my opinion, with large expanses between the polycarbonate, but if that's sufficient structurally. What I have more of an issue with is why you aren't doing it all the way out to the edge when you've got curved pieces going all the way through the building, and maybe I should have worded that as a question before when we were in questions, but I think it's going to look funny. I think it's losing its strength as a material to end and then transition into stucco. And then if you are going to do that, what's the detailing of the transition to? And nobody else has really commented on that, but I don't like it. Of course, I'm not going to be here next time you come. I'm the only one, but you don't have to.
I would second that.
But I don't like the two materials. I think that I like the material, and if it can hold up, I think it could be fun. But I think you're losing the strength of it by just stopping it right there, because the form of the Quonset hut is a strong kind of archetypal form that you're kind of losing by breaking up the plaster. And I think you do need more details. That's been mentioned. I struggle with advising you to go with a metal clad window when we're approving a plastic facade. To me, this could maybe be one of those instances where a fiberglass window might be okay because the material surrounding it is polycarbonate. So that's my opinion on that. And I agree with the comments that Chris made on the landscaping. So those are my comments. They're asking for final, and I'm not really hearing from anybody that that's going to be the motion. I don't really think that's going to be the motion, but we'll see what comes out of somebody's mouth.
I'm willing to make a motion, but I think I need a straw vote of how many board members feel that fiberglass windows on this project are acceptable. Anybody feel that they are acceptable? We have one.
I didn't necessarily say they were acceptable. I was struggling with requiring a metal-clad window on a facade that is entirely not made of metal. So it just seemed...
Even though the whole roof and most of the structure is made of metal, the facade, it's true, the finished material on the
entire facade is this material, so that's why I made that comment. So.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion, and then we can revise it as needed. I think it probably, because of the unusual nature of the project, it probably should come back to the full board again. And things that we would like to see are fully detailed, address all the details on the front facade with dimensions and material call-outs. And the ones that I see, just a few that I see that are missing, is detail for the vent, for the wheat screed or the base, whatever that's going to be, for the roll-up door, which is obviously going to be different than the windows, and it's also going to be metal, presumably, rather than fiberglass. And the transition, if you're going to keep the stucco sides, what is the transition between the stucco and the polycarbonate? I personally, I'm against fiberglass windows, especially ones as long and tall as are indicated. The doors are going to be, again, I'm assuming the doors are going to be.
What part of this goes in the motion? I mean, I'm just asking because Kathy's writing over there, and you're saying personally.
Right. So I'm commenting on the motion, but I shouldn't be. So
try
I'll
to just make it clear to her
succinct.
what.
Yeah. Some board members would like to see metal windows. And other additional information that is missing that I didn't see on the plans anyway is door details and door materials, door call-outs, both the man door and the roll-up door. We need a 18-inch minimum dimension on the planters. And I do think that, and a study of refinements to the framing behind the polycarbonate. Some suggestions would be to line up the polycarbonate battens with the structural framing members, or to find a better alignment between the panels of the polycarbonate and the framing. But I'm tending more, as Dawn did, to that there's just some few refinements that are needed, but not major revision to that.
Landscape quantity and sizes.
Do you want to add that in, Chris?
Sure. Is that all you have?
Yes. That's
okay. So I'll second that motion and add that the applicant is to choose a different plant species and also include the size and quantity. And a note regarding the irrigation, if it is to be hand watering.
I will add one more comment. I do think that Dawn's comment about the plaster or stucco on the sides is worthy of note, and that to look at the possibility of making extending the polycarbonate fully to the ends of the front facade.
Anything else? Chris seconded the motion. Under discussion, anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gary opposed, and Paul's abstaining because he wasn't here. Motion carries. Thanks, guys. It could be really cool as we get it detailed, right? You know? I think it's going to be a really cool building once we get it detailed. Number 3, 301 South Hope. We're 10 minutes behind. So Brian has 2 minutes to give his presentation.
I need the plans, though. Tony, you have our plans? Whoa.
This new item, concept review for an addition to an automobile showroom, parking, landscaping. Your name for the record?
Brian Cornell. I'm here with Martin Hartman and Dick Graham and Matt Graham. So we did these this dealership back in the early 90s, and Dick and Matt approached me recently about adding another showroom because there's a number of possible manufacturers that would be interested in being a part of this facility, but they require a separate identity. So, as you can see from the existing photos, let me see if I'm never good at these upside down, but we basically have this blank wall that right now connects us and what is now the Smart Car and Jaguar dealership here. So that's this wall. So that's the existing condition. We also, when we did this original planning, we oversized these parking bays to allow for sort of double parking cars. So this is an exaggerated dimension more than the typical. So what we've done with this planning is basically do a relatively simple, approximately 2,500 square foot showroom against this wall, flanking the service entrances, and slightly, as you can see, slightly modified the parking lot to allow that to occur. This is kind of just I brought this, we didn't submit this, but this was a very, very early sketch that I did of the concept that just kind of gives a perspective view of that relationship. And then, of course, with the elevations that we're submitting today, which is just for your conceptual review, what we decided to do was to create kind of a mid-height range to this showroom. We did want to gain some extra height for the possibility of a mezzanine, an additional sort of mezzanine space at the second floor, but we also wanted it to be between that existing showroom height, which is a large vaulted ceiling, and this little tower element. So that's kind of how we came up with this height that seems to settle in nicely with this wall. And you can see it's pretty straightforward as far as what would be accomplished. Obviously, we are going to gain planting in the process of doing this, even though we lose a couple of palm trees in the process. So that's pretty much it. I think what we are looking for today is a sense of your comments so that Dick and Matt can really move forward in negotiating with a specific manufacturer to move into this space, and then we'll proceed with the necessary steps to do that. Here's the rest of the photos. That's it. You wanted me to be quick, right?
Comment for this item, anything, Tony? No. Okay. Questions?
How does this hip work in relationship to the existing wall and how tall it is? And then, I guess the hip is higher than the wall in the back.
Is this a hole?
What is that? I'm not following.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, the idea is just to not necessarily complete the backside with tile and leave that open for access for mechanical. I don't know, Paul, that we've completely worked that out, but that's the basic concept. If we needed, if we needed to return that hip, we could, but there really isn't much view of that from anywhere on the backside of this because of the high, this high wall behind. So that's the basic idea, really.
Other questions? Anybody else want to just jump in?
So
Chris?
that mezzanine was a potential, or is that a...
It is, at this point, we are, it's going to be a Measure E issue, and that may be driven by traffic, and so we want to leave for the potential, we want to have that potential because some manufacturers may have different requirements than others as far as square footage. So it's an unknown at this point.
Any more questions? Gary, you have any questions?
No questions.
Stephanie left.
I guess I'll-
Yeah, go ahead.
Simple one. The E detail, is there a gutter on the end of that, or what?
Yeah, we would have a gutter, and I think the goal is there is a certain obviously style to the dealership, and we want to create a harmonious but slightly different detailing. So it's still going to kind of be of the period. You can see we show here. I mean, this is very rough, but we're still showing chamfers on the columns, and so we'd have some sort of a capital detail. And yeah, there would definitely be a continuous gutter around that.
Okay, comments? You ready to make comments, Kirk?
Sure, I suppose. I don't see anything to object to, really. I think it looks like it fits in nicely. It's recessed back into the interior of the site, and the height seems appropriate. And as Brian represented, it's similar but different. So I think it works in my view. So,
Okay,
comments?
Paul?
No comments.
Comments, Gary?
No, I think it's great.
Chris?
Like great.
All right, I don't have anything additional to add.
Okay.
Concept review, comments only. That's where we are.
You need to make a motion.
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion that the
Project is going in the right direction and return back to full board for preliminary.
Great. Thank you.
I'll second.
Seconded by Kirk. Any discussion items? Nope. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
See, I did it for you, Dawn.
Opposed?
Are you really?
Abstained? Motion carries.
You've
Yep.
really done your 8 years?
I did 7 because
You
I
gotta
came
do
in on
8.
somebody. I came in on somebody's term, so.
Don't go, Dawn. Hey, I know the
Thank you,
feeling.
I feel
You know
loved.
how every Monday afternoon I had headaches. Why is that happening?
you need that.
This is yours, yes.
I got ours.
All right, thanks, you guys.
Do you have that little rendering that I? did you
Yeah,
get
somewhere.
that?
Somewhere. Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
We didn't record what you just did. Who made the motion and seconded, and what was
The motion was made by Paul, and it was seconded by Kirk.
And the motion was the project is going in the right
Project
direction,
is going in the
return
right
back to
direction.
full board for preliminary.
Continued indefinitely to
Continued
where?
indefinitely.
Continue definitely back to the full board.
Before they go to Planning Commission.
They
You
never
want to see it
discussed
back
that.
here before it goes to Planning Commission.
Oh, we didn't address that. I think that he has comments, though, sufficient to go to Planning Commission.
Well, I could return.
If you have changes or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't I do that, because I've got to resubmit everything, so we can return prior to the planning commission.
Okay, continued back to ABR full board.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what, and Paul did say that in the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, item 4, 546 Scenic Drive. This is concept continued item referred from the consent calendar on November 19th. Your name for the record.
Mark Mirando, agent for the owner, who's coming up right now, Spencer Vaughn.
Okay. We have plans? Oh, Tony's got it. Do you want to start explaining the photos while he's doing that?
So basically, the house sits above the golf course in Montecito, along, you go up, I think it's Harbor View, and then you make a left onto Scenic, a right onto Scenic. So as you go down towards the end, there's a cul-de-sac, and he is like right at the beginning of the cul-de-sac. And this is the wall. We had a survey. The second sheet is just a survey showing that the wall, which is 4 feet high, it's like 47 inches high, and it's got a stone cap. It's 8-inch CMU stucco with a sandstone cap. The pillars are, I think, 5'4", and then they have the light standards on them. And the gate, basically from the ground, is 6'7". It's an amazing gate company. It's black wrought iron, and this is what's the view directly across the street. So this is kind of looking at it from down back at it. If you look down the cul-de-sac, this is the hedge that's right across the street. And this is the one just up from him. So there's a lot of cypress all along there. And this is a photo of the gate. So basically, it needs a public works encroachment permit, so anything in the right-of-way requires review by ABR. The house originally, and all the houses around, I did a study of about 14 houses within his vicinity. They were all built in 1953 to 1954, and Spencer's was built in 1963. So it was about 9 to 10 years later than the other homes in the area. And he did an addition in 2005. He put about 300 square feet of accessory onto the front of it. And these were the plans at that time. He basically added on to the front of the garage with an accessory kind of use. And it showed in 2005 this wall in the right-of-way with the pillars and the wall itself. And I looked through the file, and basically in 1984 when it first sold, it called out the front hedge as being over height. And then in 1989 it called out the front hedge and the hedge along the driveway. And then when he bought it in 96, it said the same thing. And what happened, he's got the photos, was when he purchased it in 96, he came out here and the cypress were just like next door. They were all overgrown, and they started cutting into it, and they found the wall and the pillars. So he's got some photos to that effect of when, he found that the wall was there, and the light standards with those 60 bulbs were on there. And actually those light standards are wired to the front door, so there's basically 3 light switches. One goes to the light right inside the entry, the other one goes to the light right outside the door, and the other one goes all the way up to these light standards. So we think that it was built at the time. It's in the same steel.
It's not the same height, though.
No. No. It was 3 feet. It was 3 feet in back then. And he added like 2 courses. And the pillars, he sandstoned them.
Everybody understands the application, right? Walls, pilasters, lighting, gate, as-built. Okay. Is that it?
Well, here's a whole bunch of photos that go down the street showing you what the similar conditions are. So that's just right in the cul-de-sac. Somebody has something like that. Looking across the street, I mean, you could look through these and basically see that on the uphill side as the slope comes down on the other side of his street. All these walls are in the right-of-way, basically the same as his. And this is one just down about 4 houses from his house. This is
No
down.
tall walls, though.
Like 3.5, 4 feet. They're all, and then as you go around the corner, as you come around the corner, there's like just hedges and fences and walls. So there is, basically it's a recommendation to Public Works. It's not really MPO findings, but it's your guys' feeling as to the aesthetics of the wall and what you would recommend to them, whether or not they support the Public Works encroachment permit.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Public comment on this? Anything, Tony? No,
public
nobody's in the
comment.
audience?
I have some staff comments.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to make sure you all understand this wall and fence and gate are in the right-of-way. They appear to be on the private property, and if they were on private property, they would be over height. They would be over the 3.5-foot height limit. So it's kind of a technicality that they're out in front of the property line in the right-of-way where there is no zoning requirement for a height limit on a fence. And planning staff gave me something for y'all to consideration, that it be consistent with other development in the city and that might require modification. So consider that as you're reviewing this. Does this property have special constraints that make it difficult for the improvements to comply with code requirements? Is it consistent with the development of the neighborhood? Does it pose a safety concern?
Can you back up one? What was the last thing you said about this project poses difficulty?
Has transportation staff been consulted on sight line or safety, the safety aspects of it?
No, not at this time, no. His lot actually slopes down rapidly right behind the gate.
So you haven't been to transportation on this?
Yeah.
Anything else, Tony? Questions? Chris? Anybody over here? Questions? I have one question. My question was about transportation because I've never heard of a gate being approvable right at the property line, or in this case even in the right-of-way, because of the 20-foot back rule about being able to. I think that transportation having that comment would be like the first thing that should have been required even before they're here, because if transportation won't even consider it, then why would it even be here?
Well, the rule is basically usually they either set it back at like 18 to 20 feet, and technically 20 is the rule, but if they either like them at 0 or at 20, but they have to be automatic. If they're automatic, then you can drive up and hit them and it'll open. But if it's not automatic, then you have to, typically you would pull over the sidewalk and you'd be parking in the sidewalk, which forces people out around the car, which is the purpose of it.
Yeah, but that's garages. Garages are the ones that they want them either up close. I've never heard of a, I don't know.
Even the gates, like on the west side when we try to do them, or anywhere, they either want them either automatic at the property line, so you don't park over the right-of-way and force people into the street. In this case, there's not really any visibility issue, but we didn't have it assessed by transportation. And it probably didn't get routed, so we don't
So
really
you
have
did
that
have it
problem.
assessed by transportation?
No, did
Oh,
not.
you did not, so you haven't been. So that answers my question. That was my only question.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do the gates swing out?
Swings
No,
in.
this swings in.
Okay.
It's one gate.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
it, open, swung in.
Okay, comments?
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Kirk.
Well,
Yeah, that's it swung in too.
you know, aesthetically, I don't really have a problem with it. I can't imagine it, given the character of the neighborhood and other walls near the street and large hedges and so on, I don't have an issue with the aesthetics. Although I would rather not see those, those big bulbs on top of the columns. Aesthetically, I think, it'd be nice to have the lighting down low, but there's other examples in the on the street of lighting like that, and it's been there a long time, as evidenced by the photographs. But for me, the issue is just safety, and I don't, it's not really. That would be my concern, because my understanding would be that the issue is that the car would actually have to be proud of that wall for the driver coming out of that driveway to be able to see if there was a pedestrian coming, or to see if there were other cars coming down the street. That's what I see as the real issue, and that's what I see as the reason for the heights, adjacent to driveways for hedges and walls being down at 3.5 feet. And it's compounded by the fact that the driveway drops down there. So for that reason, I don't feel like I'm in a position to say that safety-wise it's okay. It seems to me like it appears to be a problem safety-wise. Is my comment.
No, not yet. I'm sorry. At the very end, and then we'll let you.
Good, thank you.
Anything else, Kirk?
No.
Paul?
Just to inform the board, this came to consent, and I wasn't in a position to support it, so I recommended it to come to full board. And it has to do with the fact that we all know that walls aren't supposed to be greater than 42 inches. And this, because it's a technicality that the wall is located in the right-of-way that it's in front of us. And so for that reason, I just can't support the project because of that technicality, and that it's not fair for all the other property owners in town that have to maintain a wall of 42 inches unless they have certain conditions that warrant a modification.
Thanks, Paul. Gary?
Although I agree that the wall technically is in the right-of-way, I think that in this particular case it's in a cul-de-sac, and it has been there quite a long time. The wall is short, the columns are over height, but I think the wall is under height. There is no sidewalk in front of it, and the hedges made the whole thing disappear at one time. So my comment is that I don't have a problem with it. I think it's just a technicality, and I would be in favor of them going for a zoning modification to have it approved as built.
Thanks, Gary. Chris?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was also at the consent meeting when this came, and I think I agree with everybody here, and I think that it's been there for a long time. I didn't have a problem with it other than the light fixtures, which you may recall we joked around a little bit about. There is no sidewalk. I don't, again, transportation would have to determine if it's a safety hazard, but in my eyes, I would be okay with it remaining as is.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's an aesthetic board. This is why our comments should really be limited to that. But just for the record, I agree with Kirk. I think it's a safety problem, but that's not our purview. So it's up to transportation and Public Works to make those decisions. I couldn't support the bulb on top because it's not a cutoff fixture, and it's contrary to the outdoor lighting ordinance of Santa Barbara. So pumpkins I could approve because they're full cutoff, as long as the lids are on. And that's all I have to say. So you need comments in order to go back to Public Works?
Correct. Public Works originally said they didn't have a problem with it. David Thornburg, he said they're never going to build sidewalks there, basically, and they're not going to widen the street. So
this would be when you say action may be taken, it's project design approval could be given for the as-built. Is that that's the approval that would be?
Well, the staff little note that I got suggested that you might continue it back to consent pending Public Works Transportation reviewing it for safety, and they
send
might
it back to
return with
consent for project design approval?
Mm-hmm. And also they
With the
could return
direction?
with a lighting alternative.
Okay. So you heard it from staff.
I could make that motion. That to forward the project back to the consent calendar with the provision that the walls and gate are reviewed by it would be traffic or Public Works for safety. To comment on the safety issues associated with the wall heights and column heights, and to provide full cutoff light fixtures at the columns as a minimum.
Thanks, Kirk.
And maybe some comments that aesthetically you're okay with it.
Yeah, I'd say aesthetically the board does not have issues other than with the light fixtures.
All right. Would somebody like to second the motion? Seconded by Chris. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? One opposition by Paul. No abstentions. Motion carries.
okay, thank you.
Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry.
Take some of
I
these.
totally forgot to I'm going to open this item. What do you
up
want
on
to
my
say?
Robert rules of order.
What did you want to say? I'm
Let
sorry.
me just make a couple of comments regarding safety. Ingress and egress has been improved a whole bunch. We had big hedges on either side of the driveway. I mean, they were 6 feet. And those were removed. Now I've got cascading rose plants in there. We have babies in the cul-de-sac that are wheeled up and down all the time. Ingress and egress. All right, the egress from our property back out of the garage, we have spent a ton of money in putting pavers in the driveway and around the house for that matter. But so that as you back out of the garage, you have plenty of room to turn your car around. It's just not a problem. And as far as ingress goes, the automatic gate, of course, swings in. I've checked it out and rechecked it. Safety-wise, I am really on top of that. And I agree with you in terms of the question mark, is it safe? Please drive by and check it out. I've been needled and needled and needled on these globes, which came with the house. I'm more than happy to get rid of them. Even my wife says, get rid of them. So whatever satisfies all of you on a picture, I'm happy to do. No problem there.
I think Mark will be able to help you out with that.
If you go down almost any street in the city, you'll find at least one house that violates that rule of thumb, that there shouldn't be anything higher than 3.5 feet adjacent to the driveway at 10 feet on each side. And my own property, there's a violation on one side because there's a retaining wall that's been there since the house was built, and there's an overgrowth, and there's no way really to improve it. So it happens all over, but wherever it is possible to make those requirements apply is helpful in terms of providing safety for both pedestrians and for yourself. So, yeah.
The other thing is the gate went in, the pilasters were there from year one. The gate went in because we were violated on the 26th of last year. Somebody came down the driveway and stole out of my car, which I thought was locked, but they stole a new set of golf clubs, really great golf clubs, and some electronics out of there. Yeah. And it's, except for the loss, you pay the insurance company $1,000 and you're making all your premiums. Except for the loss, that wasn't so bad. But being violated, knowing that somebody's not only trespassing, but coming down and taking things from your property is scary.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a do-it-yourself gate. And I think if I had to do it over, I'd do the same thing. Honest to goodness, we plowed so much money in on this whole project, the house in total, that's our nest egg.
Okay.
So
well, you're going to
trying
have a
to
good argument for when you take those comments to Public Works and Transportation.
Okay, thank you.
We agree with you.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear them.
Okay, you don't need these pictures?
No, they're extras.
Yeah.
We saved a copy. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair, I'd like to report a violation of Kirk's house.
Of what? Violation of what?
At Kirk's house. And we need to take a
thank you.
break because the next applicant, is the next applicant here? Oh, he's here, okay. I didn't see anybody in the audience. So we're on to 213 West Coda Street. I didn't see you in the back. He was sitting in front of you.
We will move forward.
This is a new item, a proposal for a 3-unit, 2-story apartment building. The existing single-family residence will be demolished. All right, your name for the record.
Tom Kress.
Go ahead.
Shall I go ahead?
Yep.
All right. These are the photos I brought in, and so I'd like to
Let's
just
see
go
where
ahead.
we are here. Let's show
Okay.
everybody where we are.
If I could switch to sheet 2, you can have a pretty good neighborhood map.
West Coda, yes.
This is the existing house. It's not historic, and so we're proposing to demolish that. These are the houses across the street, and this is the streetscape on our side. On our side, it's all apartments. On this side and this side, They've been built within the last 10 years, and there's another one.
You're going to have to speak closer to one of these mics that you're covering up. So you might want to just sit down and,
All right.
if you
Sorry
can.
about that. So, shall I go to the site plan?
It's this property right here.
I'm looking at this upside down.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, so...
So you're there?
Yeah, we're here. This is the property here, and then this property, well, it's still on this property here, and this is looking down its driveway.
This
property
on the other
is
side?
here, yes, and it's, as you can see, it's was built within the last 10 years. This is a view from the back side of the property, and it's taken from back here, and you can see here how the driveway slopes up, and that's our driveway right here. Oops.
And you have a gate on the front there. That's your
To,
gate.
to
Okay.
be removed.
Okay. All right. So what are you doing?
This is the site here. On this side is an apartment house, and the other side is an apartment house, and they both have driveways adjacent to this property. This property at this point is very narrow, so we don't expect any building to be built there. It extends way out to De La Vina, and we also have a creek setback here. So we do have this existing open space surrounding us on the adjacent properties. This house here is approximately 8 feet above street level, and on a previous project I finished about a year and a half ago, we were on the same coastal plain. That one was at 129 West Valerio, so we're straight up De La Vina, and we discovered then that in the 1880s when they built the streets, they did cut on this side, and then all of these properties were all fill. So in calculating our new foundations, which will go around here, we found that that would be about 64 cubic yards of soil to be moved. However, the existing house here is completely open underneath at about 5 feet high. So we're thinking that any soil from the foundations can be compacted underneath the existing house, so we ended up with no import-export on it. The proposal looks large because it's drawn at quarter-inch scale. The existing driveway is here, and again, there's a driveway here and a driveway here. This is the site plan here. Maintaining the same slope as the existing driveway so that there won't be any grading to affect the property on each side. This has been through traffic, and so we have our traffic ways worked out. At this meeting, we are also going to request from this board, which can be approved by this ordinance, to extend the garages 3 feet in the side yard setback. This will allow us then to have one maneuver turnaround so that we can pull out forward into the street. All the other buildings up and down this block, they have to back out. And so this is, with your approval, we can avoid that type of very dangerous situation. Is the reason for that request. We've satisfied the 5 different types of open space requirements. First one would be flood control setback, and this has been reviewed. Second type is a common space, which is down here. The other three types, the private open space in each apartment is here, and added to that is the 10% open space, and added to that is the setback open space. So what humans occupy are these small then spaces here is enclosed, and since they're tiny rooms, I tried to put amenities in to accommodate their small size, so 9-foot ceilings. The front doors are here, here, and here, but as you look through the front door, you can see through to an 8-foot fence on this side. So I combined these three types of open space to give each one then their own private yard. To accommodate the intimidating aspect of being so close to the sidewalk, it's only 10 feet from here to here. Instead of having a front door that opens into the space or a large window into the space, we are doing these corner windows so that from the inside they have a much longer view, and then there isn't that characteristic intimidation from the public going by. They also have a lot of public going by at night because of all of the clubs on State Street. So we tried to continue that aspect, that concept, upstairs too. Where it faces the neighbors on each side, we still located the windows in the corners of the bedrooms so that, for instance, on this side, the bed wall will not be seen by the neighbor, and that way they could have like lights on each side of their bed so that they won't have light either shining in their face. This is concept stage, but I've included landscaping. I can go over that more thoroughly in this, but I can continue with the facade of the building.
He's probably looking at the landscaping right now, so, and it looks like you've noted it pretty well, so let's move on to elevations, actually.
Yeah, okay. We're well under, oh, by the way, in the open space we are, even though we have driveways and street on each side, we're still proposing 125 square feet more than is required in the open space requirements. The front elevation, the street elevation, we wanted to keep that just quiet and receding rather than make a big splash architectural statement. In the materials, we're showing shingled roofs because every other building up and down both sides of the street have shingled roofs. In the trim with the gutters, we're because of all of the open space requirements, these type of buildings can get to be very cluttered in their form and mass. So the thought is to connect these all with a horizontal line on the roofing and trim. On the window and door openings, I was thinking about deriving from, not copying, the way the Presidio was built or the De La Guerra Plaza to get a little relationship to historic structures. And so in those days they would build adobe brick and then stuck over that and have a wood lintel, as I'm sure you know, and then against the adobe and the stucco would be a wood frame, and then would be the sash with the glass. So we're basically doing that the same way, only of course with modern materials so that then we end up with an opening, in this case is 3 feet by 5 feet. In the Eagle catalog, Window Maker catalog, they have a sash with a rough opening of 210 by 410.5, I think it is. So we will be putting a sash in, wood sash, the same sort of way they built it in those days, sloped sill, and these are recessed. The wall around the doors and windows are a foot thick, so that these are recessed 6 inches. We're also trying to maintain a historic type of proportion. This is 3 feet by 5 feet. And so then in dividing the lights on each one of these windows, this is to this as this is to this, the same way with these smaller ones. And then anything that's not rectangular, we stayed with squares. In terms of the building and its aging, we were thinking that because the roof pretty much has to be standard shingles that can be easily repaired, that we want to use products, for instance, this would all be galvanized iron gutters, and this fascia and the plinth, we painted the same color, so that in the future it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to do easy maintenance on it. Copper gutters, as you probably know, are hard to repair because they develop a patina that can't be matched later on. We're also trying to do wood plank doors, again from the Presidio, and then do that with the garage doors with a slide arch, and also the fences, which will be around the lot.
Let's see the backside.
Wait, next sheet, please. Again, it looks large because of the scale of the drawing, but we are supplying more open space than is actually required. And these are the one-story garage extensions here that allow us to pull cars out forward. If these can't be allowed by this board, then the parking is still okay, but all these new 6 cars would have to back out. This plan is turned around 180 degrees just because I was trying to illustrate how the backside framing will line up here. The last sheet is the way we subdivided all of the open space requirements, the 5 different types, and how the traffic department turnaround space will be working. Bright colored, if you need it.
Let's see it.
So, starting with the roofing, can I go forward to this one? I did a partial elevation sketch, and then there's one. This is a copy of that one, and then these are the color samples. This is the roofing type, its specifications, and so I started there.
Let's actually move this forward, and the TV camera is going to zoom in on this thing.
Okay.
Perfect.
So what I did is I started with the roofing color that I thought goes generally with the neighborhood, and then all the other colors are of the same hue but just darker and lighter, so that it will all be monochromatic. So this color will be the gutters and the trim, and then the fascia here and the building plinth are these two areas are that one color. All of the wood will be sandblasted, sealed, and painted this color, again for easy maintenance so that it doesn't fade with age. And then the stucco color is here.
Thank you. That's great. It's a good presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I didn't know you served dinner here.
We're going to open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board? If not, is there anything from staff? We'll start with Gary. Was there anything you were wanting? Is that it?
Questions, Juan?
Questions.
First question is to you and staff. Is this in a flood zone?
Yes, and I can show you that on sheet 2 and the way we accommodated it. And we are outside. We don't have any problems with flood.
You don't have any issues with the flood, the garage area?
No. This is the flood setback here. This is Mission Creek.
Is that the flood setback or the creek setback?
No, this is the top of the creek, the legal top of the creek from the surveyor's drawing. And this is the legal setback, 25 feet. So in this area, we have nothing in here except planting. There's not even a parking space in there. Originally, we did have a parking space there, but even that's not allowed.
I think we're talking about two different things. But the other thing I wanted to ask about staff was.
This modern age.
This would be for staff. Two questions. One is the outdoor living space. Is the outdoor living space, I know we had some problems with the Housing Authority project. Is that allowed in the creek setback area? And the other question is the creek setback 25 feet or is it 50 feet?
It's 25 feet from the top of the bank of Mission Creek, and we allow the open space to be in that, but not the parking or structures
25 feet from Mission Creek?
from the top of the bank.
Sheet number 2.
Let's just say that it would behoove you to get more than
One person.
one person's opinion and make sure you get multiple clarifications of the creek setback, just because I think what Gary's saying is that we've had a couple projects come through where somebody's been given some information and then it was changed later.
I
The
talked
creek
to
setback.
John Fry at the county, who explained that the creek setbacks are controlled by the state, the county, and the city. And then I talked to not Conteriano, one of the people in the city, forget his name.
It's all right.
And-
You know what? We're just. I think
And
just
so
Gary
they all
just wants
But
you
isn't
to
it
be
like
sure.
creeks come in?
He
Doesn't
just wants
creeks
you to
have-
be sure that you have talked to
Yeah.
everybody, and right now, just for tonight, we're going to be reviewing what you have.
Okay.
And we, right now, let's just make the assumption.
Well,
that-
but the assumption has, the reason I bring these questions up is because it has a lot to do with site position of where the building is. If in fact that this isn't a flood zone and he's using the creek setback as a flood zone, he may not be able, being going downhill, may not be able to have some square footage in that flood area.
Right, that,
And that would mean that the site planning would be different.
and then he'll come back with a revised proposal.
Okay.
Right now, we're reviewing what's on the table.
Actually, I think even if it were 50 feet, we're beyond it because there's no building structure.
All right, well, that question, again, will be the staff to work that out. And then those are the only questions I have right now. No, I do have a question. The area right here in between the eave, what material is that?
I
Is
think
that
he's talking
wood?
about that material.
That would be the
Is that what you're
same,
talking about, Gary?
Yes.
same stucco as the wall in general, and then we're just putting a 1-inch plaster bead
Okay,
there.
so it's a plaster bead on there, shadow line. Okay.
Yeah. And then the rest of it's paint.
So this is a darker color,
Yes.
painted plaster.
All right.
Other questions? Chris?
Yes, thank you. Can you turn to the landscape? I guess you're already there. Can you just walk through this with me briefly, just so I get an idea and make sure I'm
Sure.
straight on everything? It looks like you're bringing in some large trees, which is nice. And then all these are you calling out the 15-gallon Toyons? Is that what that is
Yes.
when you say typical?
Yes. I
Okay.
said typical just so I didn't rewrite that note over.
Okay, so that's, you realize those will get large, and will they be trimmed into hedges, or?
You can shape them. They're practically indestructible.
Yeah.
And they require practically zero maintenance. Shall I go over the landscaping plan quickly so
Sure,
you can
quickly
see
is
what
great,
we're thinking?
yeah.
Up and down the street, there are evergreen trees that look like magnolias. I don't know all the different types. Maybe some of them are fig. But we're proposing 2 magnolias here, and as you probably know, there are dozens of magnolias, but these are the smaller types that don't have a large root ball. And so we will be matching what's going up and down the street. There's in the parkway, which is not our tree, is a very large tree now. I couldn't find out the species, but where I lived in Central Australia, they were called billabong. So maybe you know, I don't know. And then these trees are olives, which are also the small type that don't have fruit. And then there's another type of magnolia that can be espaliered on the fence. And then the last type are these. No, I was doing no ground cover there except mulch.
Here is mulch.
Yeah, because that's open space.
Okay.
And then the border plants are the Firescape. They're called blue French fries, but there's I showed 3 different varieties. They only grow about this high.
Okay. Okay. What is this? Catch basin? Is that what that is? CB?
Yeah, at the foot of the driveway to catch the sheet water, and then on a different sheet, I'm showing a.
That's okay. I get a general idea. One
Yeah.
question I did have was what's happening in the back.
My way of thinking is, I don't think the government should regulate that because these people might want a little vegetable garden for their kids or something. These people might want just a flower garden, and since it's a private space that can't be seen from any angle, I thought it should be allowed. They should be allowed to just plant what they want.
Okay, so you have a wood fence here, and then what's happening along this property line? Do you
8
have-
foot with wood.
Okay,
fence,
so this
wood
is
on board.
back of house, so to speak.
Right? Or is it new?
Yeah, it's existing, and there's another one like it over here. On my site plan, I
There's
just
a driveway. And there's a driveway on each side. of the-
yes.
What were you going to say on my site plan?
I just discovered this morning that it's actually theirs. I thought it was on this property, but it's actually on that. So I just have to make that one.
Okay, I'm good with questions.
Paul, questions?
Just one quick question. The front yard setback is 10 feet?
Yes.
What is the second story front yard setback? Is it
10.
different
10.
for
10.
R3?
3 stories, you have to be 15.
And then if we go back to the overall surveying plan, just one sheet, what are your neighbors' setbacks? And are they 2-story or 1-story?
They're 2, and I guess because this is a smaller lot, they were allowed up to 5 feet here with their porch. This is the surveyor's official map done a few years ago. And they also can park in the floodway.
It's a different plan, different era.
Yeah, and so, well, they could have gotten them all, too. And then on this side, it's planter, driveway, and this is sidewalk.
And then this distance here, I mean, we don't know, but
This is at 1 inch equals
10 feet.
10 feet, so it looks like maybe 12. This one's 5, 10 or 12. Well, actually, I think that must be a part of the building, so it could be 10 there, but the zoning is 10.
okay. That was my question.
Can I jump back in briefly and
Yeah.
just ask if there's any existing vegetation, trees or otherwise, that is to be removed?
There's some yuccas here, but no other trees to be removed.
Kurt, questions?
That's not that big tree right at the front corner that you're talking about
Where are
taking
those
out?
photos again? Let me see.
I don't have
We're
them.
not taking
Right there,
out
right
any
here.
trees.
Or is it, well,
There's a huge...
It's in the parkway?
It's the parkway, and that's a city-owned.
okay, and this one right here, is that an adjacent parcel, or?
That's the yucca.
That's what I, okay.
Yeah,
It's right here.
they're very overgrown.
All right. The FAR on this, I noticed it's blocked out on the front sheet. Do you know what the FAR is? What percentage you are?
Is that place?
It doesn't
Or Tony-
apply to multifamily, right?
Yeah, it's not applicable. That's why that's not filled
Yeah, we
out.
don't ask for FARs on
Okay.
multifamily.
And it looked like you don't have any issues with the solar ordinance there too. I noticed you had drawn that in on one of the elevations.
Yeah, on 2 of the elevations. We're way below. Well, we're below it.
92.
And we're also, the height
92?
restriction is 45 feet, but we're at 30 feet 6 inches. So this one is a copy of this one. I showed it in the front of the building, here and here. And as you can see, it gets smaller, shorter as it goes down, so there's no, as the site slopes, there's no solar problem.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
You know, I had that same question about the solar. This is 18 feet from, where's the grade? So the grade you're saying is way up here? Wait, where's,
No.
right here
See,
is
in
grade?
the front, the grade is here. And then as the site slopes down.
Right.
That's the center one here.
So that's the grade of the front, and then it keeps dropping as
Yeah,
it goes
here's
down.
the 18 feet here. Here's the 18
And you've gotten your initial plan check from,
Yeah, I should clarify that solar's not shown correctly. I mean, it doesn't need to be shown more than once because the solar height limit doesn't follow the grade like that. You establish the highest point of building contact with the ground and then transpose that horizontal line over to the property line and then go up
This is what
18
you've done
feet.
here, basically, on this
So that highest line is the one
This
it would
one.
have to comply with.
which is also this one. So in other words, the rest of the building is lower than the one that they're using.
that would mean, Tony, that you establish your solar at the highest, at the worst case scenario, or at the highest scenario, but then that would imply that that's an imaginary line that carries all the way through, and you could build that high way back here, even though the grade is way down here?
Cool.
Cool.
Well, we're not doing that.
No, I know. I have a hard time believing it. But we're not here to discuss that because you're not proposing it. I didn't have any other questions, I don't think. Comments? Anybody ready?
I'll jump in first.
Go ahead.
Oh, wow, it's been on the whole time. I actually like the architecture. I think it's fun and playful. Just two minor things with the architecture, and then I'll have other concerns. One of was if there was a way to incorporate a covered entry over the doors, I think would be beneficial. something that's funky that I was staring at and planned. Was this corbel relating to this door, relating to this mass? And I understand that this garage goes back, and carving this. Somehow I was looking at this second-story space saying you don't really need that space, so this gets moved over, but something in here seems unresolved. Architecturally, another comment would be, I was reading this as being either a clay tile roof or a lightweight concrete tile roof going into a stucco-formed corbel of some sort, and when this was going to be metal, I was having a hard time or not metal, this metal gutter and wood trim or something. I was having a hard time seeing how that would work, so I'm a little unresolved, but it's still early in the game. And overall, like I said, the architecture looks great and playful. Concerns that I have is one having to do about the floodplain, in which there's a certain document that says that all square footage of habitable space has to be at a certain elevation, and that's determined whatever the creek is, and then it floods, and this becomes, and you got to be 12 inches higher or some number higher than the actual flood, and that definitely needs to be addressed. If you have already, then ignore that one. And the second one is we've seen a lot of trip-ups between whether it's 25 or 50 feet from the top of bank, and then what you can do in those areas. Because that's been a concern in previous projects. And then as for punching out the garages in the back, I'm trying to see the negative if we'd not allow it, how that's going to hurt the building, but I see how it enhances the architecture, that perhaps maybe I can see how it enhances the architecture. It has minimal landscaping, but because this is an open drive, I see a lot of positives to it, so I'm actually leaning towards being okay with this in the sense that it's not ruining the site and it actually creates better usability for the actual occupants. So I'm leaning towards that this is going to be a fine solution. And other than that, I think it's a great project.
Thanks, Paul. Ready to go, Gary?
Sure.
Well, I have a few comments. Some of them reiterate what Paul said about the setbacks. Just make sure all that's good in the flood zone. The 42-inch wall that's at the street, right at the sidewalk, I think that needs to be set back and that we have some landscaping in front of it. I think that's a harsh element right now, right at the street level. Sorry. I think that the garage, the elevation of the garage where the 3-foot pop-outs need something a little bit more ornate than 4 vents. I think some fenestration or some other detail there would help that. Overall, the size, bulk, and scale of the building is acceptable, but I have a little bit of concerns, and I know the board and the rest of the board won't go this way, but I do have a little bit of concerns with the architectural styling of this. And when you walk on Coda Street, on that neighborhood, specifically Coda Street, the architecture is not this particular style that you have chosen has not been in this neighborhood. And although it's a very handsome building, and I do like the architecture, I love the way that you set back the windows, and I think it's a very handsome and interesting design. But I don't know if it's in character with the neighborhood, and I don't know if it best represents the character of that neighborhood. So I have some concerns about that. I also have some concerns. I know that on different projects we had the outdoor living space problem, and I know that there was at least 3 projects that I can think of in just a few that had to move, and they ended up having to move building because of that. They ended up losing some building in order to get the space for that. Looks like you might not have that problem here because it looks like you could take that 20 feet and move it up a little bit. So it might just be a technical problem. As far as that goes, the rest of it, I'm liking a lot. So that's it.
Thanks, Gary. Chris?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with Gary in terms of the front retaining wall. I guess it's not a retaining wall, a freestanding wall. When it's directly adjacent to the sidewalk, and so you have a sidewalk and then a wall, it makes it look stark. And I think adding a 12-inch planter in between can help to really soften that up. So I'd encourage you to push that wall back a little bit. I would say also along the driveway. And then, let's see, we also want to see what you're doing in the parkway in terms of the planting. I know there's an existing tree there, but what's on the ground plane? So we'd encourage you to plant something. You can't go any higher than 8 inches, but some kind of ground cover that would green that up a little bit. And then, let's come up. And there were a couple areas that you had called out, just mulch, and one of which was here in the front. Yes. You're bringing in those big trees. And I think also there a ground cover would be helpful. I don't think you're going to use that for much as far as activity goes. So, a simple clean green ground cover over mulch is preferred. And then back here you called out mulch also. And, especially with a sheet flow, if the rain gets going pretty good, you're going to have some issues with erosion. So you might consider a different material like gravel or DG, but something I would say other than plus that stuff gets kicked around, and if it's not maintained, it's going to end up being a dirt patch. So look for an alternative ground material there. That was it. Other than that, I like the direction.
Thanks, Chris.
I liked Paul's comments about and his concerns about this area right here. I think that I double those thoughts that it looks like this needs some kind of canopy that properly integrates with the way this is cantilevered over the top of it, and the same thing with Unit A. And for a long time, I was surprised. I thought other board members were going to bring this up, but for years and years now, the Architectural Board has always tried to encourage kind of street friendliness to these condo projects, and typically what that means as a minimum is some kind of open porch that faces the street. So instead of turning your back or trying to protect yourself from the pedestrians and the street traffic, is to open it up and make it more welcoming to the street and to encourage neighborly interaction. So I think that would be my suggestion and comment, was that if there's some way to turn this entry around so that it's facing the street, and if there was some way to get a little roof canopy that came around this corner that, again, makes the building, at least that front unit, more approachable to the street as opposed to turning its side to the street. And other than that, I also would second Paul's comments. I think it's interesting architecture. It's a blend of traditional elements that I think works pretty well, and I commend you for the work. Oh, there was one other thought. This little, it's not a gable end. It's not a hip, actually. No, it is a gable end. It's the one gable end on all the roof areas.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that because of the solar you're trying to get on that roof, or what?
No, Mayor. Can I show you on the roof framing diagram here? I thought you might even bring this up. You're on this side of that. You were looking at this. Well, from the street, it's this. So you can see how I handled it here. The roof framing is going to be the trusses by Hayward and Santa Maria, the prefab. And so they can do these with jack trusses. Then I tried the same thing here in the geometry of it, in just this diagrammatic stage. And because this is extending up like this, and this side is different, I tried bringing a valley up here. That didn't work geometrically. I tried going this way, and this was the only thing that I could really get to work. And I was thinking that since it's so far back from the street, it's probably not an important roof detail on it.
Okay.
But I really have done a lot of studying of that and just can't find a different solution, but I could continue to do that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thanks, Kirk. Yeah, I had the same concern about that roof, and it looks like what you're doing is turning it's comp shingle that you're proposing. It looks like you're turning it over and having one full
Yeah, that was the
level.
comment.
And
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I like that. I would, if it's going to be a gable, then I would prefer to see more of a traditional eave on that.
Okay.
And I kind of mimic, I think it's acceptable. I like the architecture. I kind of mimic Gary's thoughts on it, not necessarily being a style that's been picked up by any other building in this neighborhood. However, there are smaller size examples of Spanish architecture in the neighborhood. The 2 stories have that I know of, there's nothing like this. So I have a slight concern about this just being the first one in the neighborhood. But there are other styles. They're mixed styles, so I think you won't be the first. I mean, you won't be the last that does this. Because it's a Spanish style, I think that the massing and the scale of the project is appropriate. But I also agree with Kirk on trying to get some kind of neighborhood friendliness toward the street instead of turning your back on it. I think that might be nice, a nice gesture because of the way the street is used. You've got solid wood front doors anyway, so that would be something that I would consider doing. So those kind of agree with what's been said. I'm okay with the east side because of the fence that runs along there, and I think that you've been sensitive to the privacy of the adjacent property in terms of window placement, and this is a stairwell that's the only window that has a lower sill along there, correct? Is this a stairwell on the inside?
This one.
And this one isn't?
No, I'm a little bit lost in your question.
I was talking about the privacy issues.
It's this one.
Oh, it's a bedroom.
Yeah, and it's an egress window, too, so that's why it's that
It's
size.
got to be lower. So I don't know where that...
One quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the trash taken care of inside the garage for each one of the units?
Yeah, where is the trash?
The trash, it wasn't required by zoning, but we were figuring that we want always inside so that it's not
Inside where?
accessible to the public. And so other places I've done, we have an outside door and a trash drop inside there.
How does the trash company get to the trash cans?
Well,
So I
then
think
they
this
have
question-
to take it out.
Through the house?
Well, they can through the house or this direction, but at the moment, that's the solution to the trash problem.
So this person that lives here has to go through somebody else's yard to take their trash out?
Well, no, they can have access through the door, but I can work
I
on
may
the
not be
trash.
I may be the only one that has a problem with that, but I have a problem with that. I think that you need to find a place for trash that works for the trash company, that's a real solution, instead of going through your living room with your big trash can or through somebody else's yard. I just don't think that's going to work.
Okay.
So anybody else feel that way?
But I want to reiterate on
and thank Kurt for bringing that up. But I was looking at the front facade of this, and I was thinking that it's very apartment looking, and there's some buildings that are close by. There's one in particular that did exactly that same thing, and every time I walk by there, it bothers me. So I think it's very important, especially with the existing building that's there that has a front porch and a front friendliness. I think it's more than just slipping a door around on the corner or something like that. The second-story facade kind of really makes a statement that this is an apartment complex. And I think that it is important for this board to say that that two-story mass that's right there, that we were kind of talking about because of the 10-foot setback, that's 10 foot. So I think it should have a little bit, I think we should concentrate on that and say that it does need some type of a porch element or a roof element or a one-story type element in the front and some neighborhood friendliness. And I thank Kurt for reminding us of that. I think it's important in this neighborhood, and I think it's probably important at this stage of the project to say that we would need something like that.
Okay, thanks, Kurt.
Madam Chair, I'll actually concur with that because I was trying to figure out what the second-story setbacks were and if that could get pulled back a little bit. It's 3 bedrooms for that Unit C.
Okay.
In the past, we've even recommended it to applicants to pursue a modification if that was needed in order to get the porch within that front yard setback, since it's not actually living space. And that's probably why your neighbor was able to do that, was to have that porch that's 5 feet into the 10-yard.
Or it might have just been a really old building.
Looks pretty new, though.
No,
Oh, it does?
it
It's
was
pretty
built
new?
10 years ago.
Okay, so this project actually says action may be taken, but it doesn't look like you're there yet, so this would be an indefinite continuance back to the full board.
I was hoping for preliminary so that we could actually get going on the
I know.
soils report. And
You can get going on the soils report anyway. That's
no,
not
we
holding
need
you up.
the design fixed so
Well,
he knows where to drill.
He could do a couple borings. He could do a few, knowing where your general footprint is.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to hear from the board is that not necessarily a concern about the footprint, but more confirmation from flood control as to where you're going to be able to build, and you could go ahead with your soils report. Because it doesn't look like you're going to get project design approval today, based on what I'm hearing from the board.
Okay.
But
Could I make comments on your comments? Or?
really quickly.
Okay, well, I'll just do one. On that front wall, there are houses all along the street with retaining and garden walls that are up against the sidewalk. And what we've found before is that those type of spaces get worn very quickly and they become an ashtray and a place for trash. That's the reason we have it up against the sidewalk and don't have a picket fence. You can see across the street, every house like this one, they all have that same type of wall. So if we can, we'd like to keep that out there just to make it cleaner.
Anything else you want to add really quick?
I think we researched the flood control a
I think it
lot.
was just a recommendation from Gary, because based on this in the past, we've had people say they've researched it too, so it's just it's a recommendation from us for you to do.
All right.
Before you get too far into the drawings.
All right.
Motion?
I'll make a motion for indefinite continuance back to full board, and people just double-check on my comments. The first one is that the applicant is to verify what the flood finish floor elevation would be for all 3 units prior to coming back to full board. The second item would be that the applicant is to verify the creek setback. Simple as that. And then the third item would be to provide landscaping adjacent the front wall at the sidewalk. That was a request. And then there was a comment about ground material, but I'll let you add that under comments because I forgot all the details. Next item would be is to provide a covering at the front door for Unit A. At Unit B, study the proportions of the corbel and incorporate a covered entryway or covered porch. And then at Unit C, which is the front unit of the project, study rotating the door to face the street and incorporating some street-friendly architecture to the project. At the roof plan, provide some details or further information about the gable roof and how the finishing would occur, which is the asphalt shingle, how it's going to turn, or however that detail is going to be. And that the applicant is to show the trash locations for all 3 units, or one common trash for the complex.
Is enclosed trash required is a question.
That's up to staff, but
So far,
Still have to
no.
show it.
you still have to, we
Show
always
where it's gonna
address
occur.
it
Yeah.
so that it doesn't have to come back later and we didn't think about it. So that's why they're bringing it up right now.
The staff will ask you that question during plan check because they don't want to see the trash being located in the side yard setbacks. So they're going to want to see where it's going to be located so it does not be located where the required parking is, which is that 20 by 20 zone.
Yeah, and you're down to a minimum size garage, so you can't put the trash in the garages. So that's why we're asking for
Or you may have to make the
for
garages a
you to
little bit
think about it
larger.
now.
Well, we are over 100 square feet on our open space requirements, so we could put trash.
Yeah, maybe try to find another place for it.
Handily right there.
That was it.
You're in the motion. Okay, you're done with the motion. Seconder for the motion.
I'll
Got
go
some
ahead.
landscape items.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll go ahead
sorry.
and second and add those items.
Okay, go ahead. Under discussion.
Under discussion, they were to address the planting in the parkway, so if it's existing to remain or adding a ground cover. And also encourage the applicant to, instead of bark and mulch in the front yard, to utilize a plant material. And the same goes for the, I don't know what you call that area back there.
Commons.
Sorry?
Commons.
The commons, to use a different material other than bark, mulch.
Is that it?
Yes. And you mentioned the wall setback. Yeah.
No further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Good,
Thank you.
Good project.
Thanks.
Thank you for being so complete in your submittal.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's appreciated
I was hoping
by
for
all of us.
I was hoping for final.
Next time.
Yeah.
Okay, our last item, 5:45. We're 3 minutes early. 222 North Milpas. This is the 4th concept review, the fresh market that we all are well aware of. This project. And then Tony's going to bring me
Look at
minutes
two, colors.
and plans.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're keeping it covered?
You can have that.
We're just waiting on plans from Tony and the last minutes to the meeting. Every other week. And we have plans, 3 sets of plans.
We don't have plans? Do you have any other, is this it?
We need 3 sets of plans. You don't have any?
No, we didn't know we had to prepare 3 sets. I thought that was the initial review. We have 1 complete set.
Where are they? Where are the plants? So you can use this for your presentation, but we're going to need it. Everybody's going to have to crowd around all of us. So let's snuggle. We can snuggle around me.
Snuggle.
Sorry about that. Can we send you hard copies, overnight them, or?
No. We need them today. We're the only ones that look at them. So the 3 was for Tony. That just slipped through the cracks. 3 sets.
Well, they were continued.
Huh?
They came back 2 weeks later. They didn't resubmit anything.
I know, but I always have to bring my plans. Like, you always take me off the agenda if I don't bring plans in like Thursday before. All right, it's all right. We know each other. Yes. We all know each other. You know us too well. Okay, so when where's the minutes from the last meeting, Tony? Oh, they're there. They're right in front of me. Motion was from November 26th. Carry over the following comments just to refresh your memories. Lower the parapet height significantly. Restudy the main entrances to provide more architectural definition, not a flat single facade. Provide section cuts through the entrance canopies. Design details for columns, parapet caps, and cornices. A larger scale drawing accurately noting existing and proposed. Increased landscaping wherever possible. Some board members feel a fusion of contemporary and Spanish is feasible. However, the current proposal isn't working. Detailed treatment of the parapet cap is not acceptable as presented. Provide a roof plan showing equipment locations and a specification showing heights of the units, the rooftop units. Coordinate the drawings. Signage not included. All right, your name for the record.
I'm Keith Wyke with the Fresh Market.
Yeah, I pulled that one.
Yeah, and I'm Jose Cervantes from Little.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to start out this week. I guess after the meeting last time, we walked away and just kind of regrouped, and really what we thought was a better direction for both the Fresh Market and for the city was to look at the proposed design that we had presented the week prior, and also look back at the parapet heights, study those more closely, and the detailing, and then also follow up with the coordination of the project. So what you're looking at now, this is really a revised design, similar to the design from a few weeks from the time prior to the last presentation, where we had more of a mission style, a little bit less of the contemporary. We had the kind of archways and a lot of the canopy details to kind of lower the scale. Along with that, we did go back and look at significantly lowering the parapets, and we have lowered the parapet heights significantly from what we presented last time. We've also gone back and we've added the wall sections to refer to over to the side. We've added material detailing on the board and paint finishes. We've looked at and coordinated our landscaping, the new proposed landscaping areas. We've tried to group them in larger areas on the project. We've gone to and we've also detailed out the columns, the parapets, and we have a small just kind of massing study of the project, and really everything out here. This just kind of shows the I know one of the questions was the scale, and on top of the scale, just how exactly felt like the elevation was flat. So we wanted to present this just really as a massing model that shows how the building really is undulating. We've also, in plan, we really looked closely at how these columns were going to be working into the site. We're limited somewhat in how far we can pull them out because we have a drive aisle, but we feel like we maximize that as best we could. So that's really what you're seeing here. There's you have the 3 archways. I'm going to use my pen. You have the 3 entries, this entrance, and this entrance. This would be the Fresh Market's primary entry, and this would be a secondary entry, but both entrances, and then you can kind of see just how they're pulling off the facade. But we can go over it further on this one. This was just and what we can do is this if we want to refer back to it.
There you go.
Again, we want to maintain the existing tile, which kind of helps our design as far as the mission style goes. And then we're still taking this detail. This is the glulam beam, but we're really recreating it. So where it sits right now, it sits inboard, and we're really pulling it out because we want to accentuate it a little bit more. What you're seeing in here, this is a new glulam beam, but it's pulled out further, and it repeats itself here as well. We've got further detailing. We've got light fixtures out here, and then we have in the archway we have a detail as well. This is kind of a wrought iron detail as you enter into each one of these spaces. In plan, you can kind of see where we've identified the new kind of entry pieces, and it's really these 3 main entrances, and then the dashed line. Those are the new canopies that are sitting out here as well. Anything to add?
Yeah, we pulled this out as far as we could. We try to get some better circulation, and that's as far that way we can go. We put the planting, the same amount of planting, possibly a little bit more extra than what there was. We have color landscape plan if you want to get a better idea as to where color-wise and also additional landscape changes that we're proposing. We're basically proposing just to replace, replenish, repair.
Okay, is that it for your presentation?
Yes.
Pretty much.
All right. Public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No.
No? You don't want to speak?
She wants the grocery store.
She wants the grocery
I
store.
have a feeling this won't be the last time, but it's my first. So.
Do you want to speak?
Not yet.
No? Okay. You can. Now or never. Okay. Okay. Questions from the board? Gary?
Sure. On the mechanical chase that you are having, this wall.
We need to have those drawings.
Yeah, let's put those out.
Do you have the detail of that wall? Do we know?
It's basically the same detail that we've indicated before. I'm not sure if you. Well, it'll have the same similar kappa and smaller.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, you can see it back here in the
great.
background.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, Gary?
That's it.
Questions? Anybody else on this side of the room?
So I just want to get an idea of where the planters are, and that's here at the back here, and then it comes forward? Or does it stop here?
Yes. It's
Little L shape.
here. We got some No, it's
Landscaping plan, right?
that stops there. There's some here and here, here. And there's it's not colored, but there's some right here. That shows up on the landscape plan.
So you've got planters under up against the building with a really deep overhang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what he's planting there, guarantee you.
Hmm?
So what he's planting there is specified on that plan.
You saw that, right,
To take
Chris?
that-
No, I'm just seeing it now for the first time.
This is the overhang, and this is the planter.
Still doable.
More questions?
Nope.
Which is why we increased some of these other areas.
Questions, Kirk?
No, I don't have any questions.
Paul? Comments? Want to start?
Well, I'll start. Thank you very much. It's a great presentation. I'm glad you brought it down. We see the existing parapet and what you're doing in front of the existing parapet. I've got like two minor comments. Well, three. One of them, it reminds me of the Trader Joe's at Upper Delavina Street, the way this arch is. It used to be the old Giordano's that you walk into it. For some reason, it just has that flair to it. Not that that matters, the coloring of the architecture. What I was wondering was the color of the awnings, which you don't need to tell me now. Right now they're really dark, and sometimes you had a more brighter color on the awning. And then I'm noticing the bottom of the awning at 8 feet, and I'm thinking that's a little too low because as I walk in, I can touch it. And a lot of people are going to jump up and want to touch it. And that just becomes,
They're going to swing off.
You betcha. So, I mean, that's a minor comment, but that's my one comment as I question a little bit of the awning design and perhaps the durability of it the way you have it presented. But I appreciate the direction you're going.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I appreciate you backing up and bringing the parapet heights down. That's kind of what I think we all were thinking. Why go higher than the existing roof?
Mm-hmm.
Two also somewhat minor things, and I don't know if other board members agree with me, but I really like the proportions of these two elements, the arch with the height of the parapet and the relationships that are established there. This one, to me, looks squat in relation to those and to the building, and I'm just wondering if this could have a different roof element, maybe like a shed roof with some tile on it or something to give it some additional play as opposed to just the repetition of the three identical arches. That's something to maybe take a look at, see if it fits with your other ideas. And then I think I would say that cap detail, the cornice, could be refined a little bit, that it doesn't need to stick out so much, doesn't need to be so bulky. I would refine it a little bit and bring it closer to the wall a bit, reduce the overhang on it. Those are my comments.
Gary? Thanks, Kirk.
Well, first off, I'm applauding the applicant for reducing the height of it, and I think that what we have right here is really something that we were looking for. I appreciate the column, relocating the columns. I like the tile on the back. I don't have anything bad to say. I think that this project should really move forward.
Thanks, Gary. Chris?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Kind of just seeing the landscape plan for the first time here. So I won't actually be voting anyway because I wasn't here last week, so I'll be abstaining. But just a few comments. Actually, maybe a question or two first. So, let's see. I think most of these trees are existing, right? You said you're going to prune them.
Right.
And then these areas where you have planters, is that to just be mulch? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mulch. Okay. And then you have calling out 19 new Lophostamen, and I'm trying to figure out where those are. Is that along here? You're putting new trees in?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And these.
And over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then what's happening in this green? It's shown as green, but I don't know that it's supposed to be that star jasmine, they're not. Also here, we're just showing it as sort of in here.
Yeah, what's in there now is it's pretty much dead, so we're reviving it and replanting.
Okay. But is that shown as far as what you're planting in that space?
I thought that was in there.
So I guess my comment would be clarification on
Yeah.
exactly what planting
Sure.
is happening in these green spaces. And also I'm having trouble reading what's going on in here. It's, I don't know if it's because it's such dark green, but maybe we could zoom in on certain areas where it needs to be seen a little better. Like it looks like you're putting this Leonotis in the back here, which is a very sun-loving plant. So we just want to make sure that we're getting, the right plants in the right place.
Yeah.
So a little bit more work in the landscape plan in terms of being able to read the information better and clarifying your proposal.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, I have comments, but I have a question. I was wondering why. Go back to questions for a minute. I noticed that you drew section C right on the outside of that big parapet wall.
Oh, that's beyond. That's a parapet.
That was my question. Is to how far back is it?
Oh, it's far back. Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, let's just see this one.
And
Where is that again? Way back here?
it's actually
Oh, wait,
you're
where?
actually seeing it here. Now
So
that's
it's way back.
yes, yeah.
So this is that one. Oh, sorry about your coffee there. That one there.
Yep.
So I think it's a huge step in the right direction. I personally still think this element is too big, just because I'm still seeing this drawing at a really small scale, and the arches, and this is 7.6, and then if you draw a person in there and up next to that element, I still think this element is too big. This is really the scale that I was thinking was appropriate, and I'm glad that you picked up on that because I think that's more the scale that I think is appropriate for this building. In fact, it sounds like I'm the only one, but I don't think that elements this tall, let's see, where is it? This one, that an element that tall with this person up next to it, I think is marginally, I still think it's too tall, but I understand what you're doing. You're trying to get relief and hierarchy and scale to this building and some human scale. I would have brought that parapet below the line of the roof because it's not related to the roof, really. This roof, the existing roof is way back, and then this is kind of a new element that's added onto it. So I would have brought this element down. And room for your signage here, here, and here. I think that if you try to present signage like this in this space, that you're going to be limited to your 10 inches, and you might be able to convince the sign committee of a few more inches, but they're going to ask you why you didn't do the signage over the doors instead of on a roof element, because signage isn't typically allowed on a roof. Let's see.
Yeah, it's not.
They're going to wonder why you didn't do it here. And then I just think this is too tall. But I think it's a really significant effort on you guys' part to move forward. And it sounds like the board will move you forward on it. I probably won't be voting in favor of it, this design, but it doesn't matter because I'm not here at the next meeting or any other thereafter.
So you can disregard everything.
This is pretty much it right here.
So there you go.
Madam Chair, I'll just chime in. The issue I was studying this white space versus that white space in Kurt's comment, and I was realizing that that this is a secondary anchor, which is why it's here, and they mimic it over to here, and this is the primary anchor, and I believe they're allowed to have 16-inch high letters. So we don't know exactly
No, you're not allowed to have 16-inch high letters.
for an anchor.
For what?
An anchor store.
it has to be with an exception.
Wow.
You're not automatically granted anything.
And I don't know what
Yeah.
the original Scolari sign was, but I guess I'm finding, because I was studying what Kirk was saying about looking at this, and yeah, the proportions look odd, but as soon as I see graphics up here and perhaps graphics up here, I can relate to what's going on. A minor detail is that these two are not at the same plane. For some reason, this guy is flush with this one, and this one comes up about 2 feet, and then this is like maybe 4 feet. So I'm seeing a little bit of modulation happening there. So.
Which is good. I did like that part. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention is, if you look at, this is section B that happens to be running through here, but this is this element right here.
Mhm.
And on the arch, you've got quite a bit of plaster here. And if you look at this element from an angle, you're going to see this really high pilaster in a really contemporary fashion from the side, and then from the front you're going to see a dropped arch. I think that there's a problem there with that.
And that's a section, I was thinking that too, but it's a section cut, so we don't really know. No, in fact, here's the line.
It's not a
The line of
section
the
cut.
plaster. Isn't it?
No, because he's drawing a beam through there. This is an elevation.
But this is
The
a
section's
column.
not cut through the column. The section cuts through here.
Right.
This is showing the elevation beyond. That elevation right here is this
That should tie
elevation.
into the wall.
So this doesn't work for me to see an arch there and to see that little tiny bit of plaster above there.
So to your point.
I understand,
The opening
but
on the sides should
we-
match the opening on the front. So that'll be one of our comments.
Okay.
And I see the
Okay.
same thing going on here with these tall, very contemporary looking, odd pieces that you would never see this type of architecture with that skinny of a column with an arch on the front with the sides open like that. You wouldn't see that. I just still think that thing is too tall.
I
But
think we can look at it on the sides, but the problem is we have some accessibility issues we need to work with.
that doesn't have anything. I'm not talking about it. This is aside from, we're talking
I
about.
understand, but returning it, we couldn't return. We will not be able to return the column because we really need to work with our accessibility issues.
What
as
we could
well.
do is to tie it in, we could drop this line down to the bottom of the
Yeah.
beam.
Yeah,
can
yeah.
look at that.
That's what I
Same
mean,
here.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to point that out. That was the other
Okay.
thing I forgot to
Yeah,
bring
that's a
up.
good
Okay, this is a project that's looking for project design approval.
Madam Chair, I think I'll put together a motion. I'm assuming you want more than 2 weeks to come back.
Well, he can't have 2 weeks because it's holidays.
Right.
You guys holiday.
I'm sorry.
We'll come back.
Good thing my
because-
mic wasn't on.
So indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments, that project is moving in the right direction, and the board is appreciative of the changes that were made from the last proposal. Study a alternative roof element at the center archway entrance. Study refinements to the cornice at the parapet cap. Study, or not study, but the openings on the sides of the new entrance elements should match the height of the openings on the side of the new entrance elements should match the height of the opening on the front of those entrances. Sounded like clarifications needed in regards to the planting.
Landscaping.
That's all I have at the moment. Anyone want to chime in? Other comments?
I'll second that
Yeah, I
motion.
need a second.
And then I'll add a comment is to study the awnings, the height of the awnings and colors for the material. And the motion that Kirk made, if it's all right with you, you said the side openings to match the existing height, and I wanted to say match or lower, or be
What's
lower.
it match what's happening at the front of
Fro-
those
Oh, I'm sorry, match or it could be lower. It
be
doesn't
a little
have
bit
to be
lower.
the same height.
That's right. It could be lower. Yep. Sure.
Okay, so do you understand, match or be lower than the front arch? And then the last comment was, I wanted to see if other board members, how they felt about this front arch, because the motion read for him to, the applicant to study the roof over the center arch. And if I'm the only person who says I'm, basically fine with it, then that's okay, but if other people feel, how strongly should the word study?
I'm actually, as I stated earlier, I'm okay with it. So I think that it's all right.
So leave the motion the way it is, as study, but as long as you understand the rest of the board, take a look at it for his comments.
What is the action? What is the action?
Take a look at it.
Continue?
It's not
or
in the
approve?
motion, and so if it's not in the motion, they won't take a look at it.
approval.
Okay.
It's a yay or
There should be a direction that everybody, that if it's in the motion.
How about one board member suggests that the roof over the center arch should be studied?
I'm fine with that, sure. It's accurate.
Okay, any more discussion?
Clarify the landscape
Yeah, go
comments,
ahead.
I guess, a little bit, and that would be to clarify the, I guess, provide additional detail in terms of existing or proposed planting for the areas shown as green, solid green color, along both Milpas and Montecito Street frontages, and I guess it's the eastern property boundary. And also it's difficult to read the planting around the main building.
So I could blow.
Yeah, we can blow that.
Yeah,
Okay, is that it, Chris?
I think that's it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed. Any abstentions?
I need to abstain. I wasn't here last.
Chris abstains. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And that concludes the Architectural Board of Review for 2012.
And for Don
And for me, thank you for listening. It's
Where are you
been
headed
great.
now?
I don't mind you coming here and wasting all my time. When you stand so near, I kind of lose my mind. It's not the perfume that you wear, not the ribbons in your